With a heavy heart, I watched Kevin pack his briefcase from the doorway of our bedroom. Our relationship seemed like a thick cloud that had descended upon our once contented house, strangling it with tension. My voice was barely audible when I spoke. "I can't believe you're doing this." Kevin glanced up, his eyes icy. "Amelia, what?" "Heading into the office. This family needs someone to keep things going." His words were a painful reminder of the choice I had made only a few days prior, cutting deep. I stepped back into the room. "You know that's not fair," I said, anger simmering in my chest. "I quit my job for us, for our family." His frustration showed as he snapped his briefcase shut. "No, you left your work because the strain was too much for you. Now you want me to take up the slack." I winced at his words. It was true I had been struggling to adjust to being a stay-at-home mother. But I never anticipated Kevin's level of resentment. "I'm trying, Kevin," I replied, my voice quivering. "It's not easy to give up a career I loved." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I'm not looking for a fight. We have some serious things to discuss tonight." The sound of little feet padding down the hallway interrupted us. Harriet, clutching her teddy bear with her golden locks ruffled, appeared in the doorway. "Mommy, Daddy, why are you fighting?" I knelt to her level and forced a smile. "Dear, we're not fighting. Daddy and I were just talking." Kevin scooped her up and kissed her forehead. "Your mom is right, Princess. Everything is fine. Why don't you go find Grandma? She's probably making pancakes." As Harriet ran off, a tinge of regret hit me. How many times had her small ears heard our arguments? Kevin put down his briefcase, his face softening a bit. "All right, tonight we'll talk. I have a suggestion that might help us get back on track." I nodded, unable to find my voice. I had an unshakable feeling that something was very wrong with us. As he left for work, I felt nervous about our upcoming conversation and what it might mean for our future. The day dragged on with dull chores and my in-laws' constant chatter. By the time Kevin returned home, the kids were asleep. After supper, we retired to the study. Breaking the silence, Kevin leaned forward. "I've been thinking about how we can tackle some of our challenges," he began. I arched an eyebrow. With a small smile, he continued, "What if we buy my parents a house with some of our savings? They could move closer, help with the kids more, and take up some of the burden." I felt the air disappear from the room. Our savings, the funds we set aside for our future, for the kids' college. Kevin's smile faded. "I thought you'd be pleased. This solves a lot of our issues." I raised my voice. "Our issues, or the issues with your parents?" Kevin stood up, frustration evident. "Why do you make things so hard? It's the best course of action for our family." I watched in disbelief as he stormed out. Had he really proposed spending our life savings on his parents without my consent? Feeling more alone than ever, I buried my face in my hands, wondering what would happen to us. The next morning, I heard quiet sounds from the kitchen and assumed it was Kevin and his mother. I walked down the corridor cautiously. "Mom, she's being unreasonable," Kevin said. I thought she'd be pleased with this. His mother responded, "Some women just can't handle the demands of raising a family. Not everyone is suited for it." Biting my lip, I felt hurt and rage battle within me. Is that how people saw me, unable to manage? I had enough. Storming into the kitchen, I confronted Kevin. "For whom is this best?" Both Kevin and his mother looked surprised. His mother quickly put on a smile. "Good morning, dear. How was your night?" Ignoring her, I focused on Kevin. "Were you going to discuss this with me at all?" Kevin looked embarrassed. "Amelia, it's not like that. We were just talking. Talking about making big financial decisions without me. About our future and our children's." His mother tried to mediate. "Let's not get too fired up. I'll take the kids to the park so you two can talk." She called for Harriet and Jason and left quickly. A sharp stillness settled between Kevin and me when the front door closed. "You cannot continue doing this," I murmured. "You cannot exclude me from decisions that impact our family." Kevin sighed, running his fingers through his hair. "Amelia, I'm not excluding you. I'm looking for solutions." "Kevin, you've been distant," I snapped. "You persuaded me to quit my job, saying I needed to focus on the family." He reached for me, but I pulled away. "That's not true. I thought this would help. My parents could assist with the kids. You'd get more support." "More support?" I laughed bitterly. "Your father barely acknowledges me, and your mother can hardly hide her disdain." Kevin's face hardened. "That's unfair. They've been supportive since you left work. Supportive? I sneered. They've been suffocating. You want to spend our money on them, but I can't make a single decision about our kids without your mother questioning me. He raised his hands. What else should we do with it? We need the help. I looked into his eyes and saw a stranger. Kevin, I can't do this anymore. I refuse to be excluded in my own family. His face softened. Amelia, we can fix this. We just need to. He was interrupted by the sound of the front door opening and the children's excited chatter. Daddy, Mommy, Harriet yelled, look what we found at the park. I forced a smile as our daughter ran into the kitchen, holding a shiny pebble. However, I saw Kevin's mother's rough glance above Harriet's head. She was certain that she had won this round. Silently, I vowed as I bent to gaze at Harriet's treasure, this wasn't the end. I wouldn't let them drive me away from my own family. Something needed to change quickly. Staring at the laptop screen in front of me, I sat at the kitchen table, seeing glimmers of the life I had left behind in each email and message that scrolled by. My fingers ached to write a resume so I could return to practicing law, where I had once been quite successful. The sound of Kevin's car driving into the driveway brought me back to reality. Quickly, I shut off the laptop, guilt washing over me. How did I get here? Hadn't I promised my family this? When Kevin saw me, his face lit up. There you are. Hello. How about we take the kids out to supper tonight? What do you think? I faked a laugh. That sounds fantastic. Where are the children? Mom took them to the mall. She mentioned something about new school clothes, he replied. My lips twisted into a forced smile. Did she? I thought we decided to do that together this weekend. Kevin shrugged, seemingly oblivious to my dismay. Mom offered, and I thought you'd appreciate a break. A break? As if I needed to get away from my own children. I swallowed my hurt, trying not to cry. Kevin, we need to talk about your parents, about this whole situation. His shoulders stiffened, and he groaned. Not this again, Amelia. I thought we were past this. Past me making decisions for our family? I got up, my anger boiling over. Kevin, you can't just keep making decisions on your own, especially not about our savings. He narrowed his eyes. What's that supposed to mean? I took a deep breath. Earlier, I heard you on the phone. You were talking to a real estate agent, right? Kevin looked surprised and flushed. It was just a preliminary discussion. I was gathering information. Without speaking to me first, I concluded for him. He raked a hand through his hair, frustration evident. Amelia, what do you want from me? I'm trying to act in our family's best interests. Our family, I emphasized, not the one your parents envision. Kevin, me, and the children. My parents are part of our family too. Why can't you see that? He fired back. Something inside me snapped. Because they're taking over. Your father ignores me at family dinners, and your mother constantly criticizes my parenting. And you let it happen. Kevin's face grew stern. That's unfair. They just want to help. Help? I laughed bitterly. Is that what you call it when your mother insults my parenting and your father avoids me? Kevin, am I wrong? When was the last time your parents weren't involved in a decision we made together? He opened his mouth, then closed it again, unable to respond. That's what I thought, I said, feeling my strength waning. Kevin, I can't keep living like this. There has to be a change. For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the thoughtful, kind man I had married. But then his face closed off again. You're right, something does have to change. You need to accept that this is our life now, Amelia. My parents are here to stay. We'll all be happier if you embrace that sooner rather than later. Shock and sadness filled me as I looked at him. Was this really the state of our marriage? The sound of the front door opening and the eager chatter of our kids was followed by Kevin's mother's voice. We're back. Wait until you see what we bought. Kevin turned to greet his mother and the children, giving me a look that clearly indicated our discussion was over. As I stood there, a horrifying realization overwhelmed me. This was no longer just about Kevin's parents, it was about the future of our marriage. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if it had one. I sat at the desk in our shared study, pen poised over paper, my heart thumping in my chest. The house was eerily quiet. This was it, the breaking point. I glanced at my watch. It was 2:37 a.m. with his head in the clouds. Kevin had no idea our world was about to change. The kids were safely nestled in their beds, unaware of the turmoil that had been building for months. My hand trembled as I started writing. Kevin, the kids and I will be gone by the time you read this. I can no longer live this way. Tears blurred my vision as I poured out my grief, disappointment, and betrayal onto the paper. I wrote about being ignored, about his parents' persistent interference, and about the dreams I had given up only to be treated as an outsider in my own home. I let out a sob as I signed my name at the bottom, quickly stifling it so as not to wake anyone. This was not the future we had planned together, and it was not how I had expected my life to turn out. However, things happen, people change, and sometimes you have to have the courage to alter your own narrative. I carefully folded the letter and placed it in the middle of Kevin's desk where he couldn't miss it. Quietly, I made my way upstairs to rouse the kids. "Mommy?" I shook Harriet gently awake. She murmured something sleepy. "What's wrong?" she inquired while rubbing her eyes. "Nothing's wrong, sweetheart. I lied. We're taking a little getaway. Could you please help me with your brother, like a big girl?" Though still half asleep, she nodded. Being the lighter sleeper of the two, Jason was usually easier to wake up. In a matter of minutes, I had them both dressed and ready to leave, holding their beloved stuffed animals tightly in their arms. I held my breath as we tiptoed down the steps, hoping Kevin wouldn't wake up. His snoring from our bedroom was a comforting sound, but it also cut deeply. I no longer felt like I knew this man I had once loved more than anything. We arrived at the car without any problems. Harriet's little voice sliced through the evening air as I strapped the children into their seats. "Where's Daddy, Mommy? Isn't he coming with us?" Even though I knew the question was coming, I froze, unprepared. "No, my dear, Daddy has to stay here. But don't worry, we'll see him shortly." Even though the lie hurt my tongue, I couldn't bring myself to utterly destroy their reality, not quite yet. As I slid into the driver's seat, my attention was drawn to a movement. Kevin's mother was standing there in the upstairs window. When our gazes locked, time seemed to stop. I saw the beginning of comprehension, a spark of wrath, and then, shockingly, something that nearly seemed like satisfaction. I fired the engine and slid out of the driveway. Without thinking, I drove through the lonely dark streets with shaking palms on the steering wheel. Where were we going? How would we proceed? My head was filled with questions that felt endless. However, I felt calmer when I looked at my sleeping kids in the rearview mirror. We would work things out. It was necessary. My phone buzzed just as the first rays of dawn started to strike the sky. My blood ran cold as I saw Kevin's name flash on the screen with a sentence. "You have no right to take my kids. My attorney will be in touch. Amelia, you're not going to get away with this." My resolve strengthened, and I threw the phone onto the passenger seat. Now there was no turning back. I would confront the next challenge and any upcoming struggles for the sake of my children and myself. I allowed myself a tiny grin as the sun rose, casting a picture of opportunity and optimism over the earth. This was only the start of a new chapter in our narrative, not its conclusion. I arrived at a dilapidated motel's parking lot, fatigue filling my body. Despite the mess in our lives, the children's faces were serene as they slept soundly in the back seat. I was about to cry as I propped my head on the steering wheel when I heard a tap on the window. "Amelia, is that you?" Blinking in shock, I looked up to see my high school best friend, Jasmine, gazing through the glass, a face I hadn't seen in a long time. "Jasmine," I gasped, wiping my eyes hastily as I got out of the car. "What are you doing here?" She drew me into a close embrace. "I manage this place. But forget about me. What's happening? Are you all right?" Something inside me shattered at the concern in her voice. Before I knew it, I was crying in her arms, telling her the entire tale between sobs. With each phrase, I felt a little lighter, the weight of the past few months slowly lifting off my shoulders. Jasmine's expression became more serious as she listened. After I was done, she gave my shoulder a squeeze. "You won't remain in this hole. Come on, I'll give you my extra room." After an hour, the kids were nestled into cozy beds, and I took a seat at Jasmine's kitchen table, enjoying a warm cup of tea. "So what's your plan?" Jasmine inquired politely. Feeling confused, I gazed into my tea. "I'm not sure. I simply could not stay there any longer. However, I can see from Kevin's text that he will fight for the kids." Jasmine's eyes became stony. "Now you attack, Amelia. You've always been the sharpest person I know. You're capable of doing this." "I don't even have an attorney," I said as the truth of my position hit home. A cunning smirk appeared on Jasmine's face. "To be honest, I think I could assist with that. Do you recall Stephen from high school?" A beat skipped in my heart. Stephen was the boy I'd secretly lusted after for years. What about him? He's a divorce lawyer now, one of the best in the state, reasoned Jasmine. She paused, then took a step forward. He always had a thing for you. My cheeks began to flush, and I felt guilty. As I was leaving my spouse, I found myself blushing over a high school crush. Jasmine, I cannot afford a top-tier attorney. I moved on from everything. Jasmine dismissively waved her hand. Let me speak with him. Just get along with him, please, for me. My phone buzzed, and it was another text from Kevin before I could reply. My folks are worried. How could you harm our family in this way? I'll make sure you never see the kids again, so go home immediately. I gave Jasmine the message while shaking my hands. Her expression grew serious. That resolves the matter. Stephen is the first person I'm phoning in the morning. That night, I couldn't fall asleep. As I lay in bed, the sensation that I was perched on a cliff persisted in my mind. Meeting with Stephen seemed like the end of the road, like my marriage had officially ended. However, as I considered Kevin's icy reasons and his parents' oppressive presence, I concluded that my marriage had long since ended. I just hadn't had the guts to say it. I heard Jasmine's voice in the corridor when I woke up the following morning. Yes, Stephen, you can meet her at 2 p.m. May, thanks for it. Jasmine turned to face me as I came out of the bedroom, her expression a mix of excitement and trepidation. Amelia, Stephen's agreed to meet with you today. My heart pounded. This was the turning point in my life and in my children's lives as well. Great. Astonished by the volume of my voice, I hugged my drowsy kids and got ready for the day. As I did, hope kindled in me, something I hadn't felt in years. I no longer felt alone. No matter what lay ahead, I felt ready to fight for the life I deserved for the first time in a very long time. I waited in Stephen's office, smoothing down my shirt and attempting to get my anxiety under control. It was obvious he had changed from the bashful youngster I recalled. When he stepped in, Stephen held out his hand with a confident, comforting look on his face. It's been too long, Amelia. I apologize that we have to meet in this manner. A familiar flutter emerged in my gut as we sat down, but I ignored it. This was about my future, my children's future, not about past crushes or what-ifs. Stephen listened carefully as I described my circumstances, his brow furrowing at every new detail. He leaned forward, his gaze fierce after I was done. I will not sugarcoat this, Amelia. This may turn heated, especially with Kevin's parents involved in his wealth. However, I can assure you that we will battle to the end. Something within me was sparked by his words, a fire I had long since forgotten. How do we start? We plotted for the next 60 minutes. As Stephen described our strategy, I sensed the return of my previous legal feelings. We began discussing the details when my phone beeped. I quickly looked at the screen. It's Kevin. I have to take this. As I left Stephen's office, I answered, Where are you, Amelia? Kevin's tone was composed and icy. My parents are devastated. The children must be brought home right now. Taking a deep breath, I prepared myself. No, Kevin. I'm not going to return. I've hired an attorney. Please get in touch with him for any more matters. A moment of startled silence fell. Then Kevin's voice became angry. Do you really believe you can take my kids and get away with it, Amelia? I'm going to ruin you. You'll be lucky if you see them again when I'm through. The call ended. Stephen put his hand on my shoulder, pulling me back to the present moment as I stood there trembling. Are you all right? He said, his expression filled with worry. I nodded and wiped away the tears I wasn't even aware I was shedding. Stephen, he made threats to abduct the children. How if? With his hands resting on my shoulders, he said, Hey, we will not let it occur, Amelia. You're not alone in this battle and stronger than you realize. I was overcome with feelings as I stared into his eyes, including dread, thankfulness, and something more I couldn't quite put my finger on. I took a step back and collected myself. What should we do next? Stephen's face took on a serious expression. We must apply for temporary custody right now. We also need to discuss your career, Amelia. Puzzled, I blinked. My profession. But I abandoned that. Exactly, Stephen stated in a stern tone. And in court, that will be used against us. We must demonstrate your ability to care for the kids independently. It struck me like a stone. I had sacrificed everything for my family, and now I could lose my kids because of that one sacrifice alone. With uncertainty beginning to seep in, I said, I don't know if I can go back. Stephen grew more determined. Amelia, I knew in high school that you were a determined individual who could accomplish anything. You only need to locate her again since that woman is still there. That day, when I walked out of Stephen's office, my head was spinning. Rebuilding my profession, fighting Kevin and his parents, and attempting to keep my kids safe felt like an impossible task. But I felt a glimpse of optimism for the first time in years. Harriet's big eyes met mine as I tucked her and Jason into bed that evening. When are we going home, Mama? My heart tightened. Oh, my dear, I replied, drawing her near. We're at home now. Our home is wherever we are when we are together. I vowed in silence as I held my daughter. I would build us a new home, one that was free of love, respect, and hardship. No matter how long it took or how fierce the battle was, I was prepared for the difficult path ahead. The old Amelia was coming to her senses and ready to reclaim her life. In front of me stood the courtroom, a rising reminder of the conflict I was going to engage in. Grasping my suitcase firmly, I attempted to calm my anxiety. Our interim custody court was today, and I knew that Kevin and his parents would make a big deal out of it. Stephen touched my shoulder with a kind hand. You can succeed, Amelia. Keep in mind all we've planned. I nodded, and as we stepped into the building, I inhaled deeply. I saw Kevin, his parents, and their attorney huddled together. My fury boiled at my mother-in-law's nasty expression. When the hearing started, I watched in growing terror as Kevin's attorney presented me as an unstable, careless mother who had deserted her family on a whim. They brought up my choice to resign from my position, misrepresenting it as proof that I couldn't support the kids. Stephen expertly made our case when it was our turn, emphasizing my years of successful legal profession and commitment to my kids. However, I noticed the judge's doubtful look. Uncertainty tore at me. Had I committed a grave error? I noticed Kevin's mother talking loudly in the hallway during our recess break. Naturally, as soon as we gain custody, we'll be moving in to help with the kids instead of some unstable mother who can't decide what she wants out of life. They need a secure environment. A part of me broke. I marched up to her before I had a chance to consider. How could you? I growled. From the beginning, you have been attempting to push me away. Guess what, though? I'm over being treated unfairly. I will use every ounce of might to battle you for those children of mine. Kevin's father moved to separate us. Amelia, you've gone insane. Right now, you're supporting our argument that you're unfit to be a parent. When I turned to face Jasmine, her eyes were flaming. I felt a touch on my arm. Remove yourself, she told my in-laws. You are no longer allowed to harass her. Stephen showed up as a gathering formed, and he gently drew me away. This isn't helping, Amelia. We must pay attention to the hearing. However, the harm had already been done. As soon as we entered the courtroom again, I sensed the judge's critical stare. My outburst had given Kevin the upper hand. Given the evidence submitted and the recent display in the hallway, I'm inclined to grant temporary custody to the father with supervised visits for the mother, the judge said, clearing his throat. The entire globe appeared to be tilted. My breathing stopped. This cannot be taking place. Stephen asked for a break right away, and the judge reluctantly agreed. I followed him into a private conference room in drowsiness. Amelia, pay attention to me, Stephen pleaded. We still have work to do, but we must adjust our strategy. You must demonstrate to the judge that you are a responsible, stable parent who prioritizes your kids. With tears flowing down my cheeks, I gave a mute nod. However, Stephen, how are they going to take my babies? I can't let them go. His gaze was fierce as he held on to my shoulders. I need you to get yourself together because we are going to fight this. I know the Amelia who never gives up. She refuses to be bullied by anyone. Where's that Amelia? His comments ignited a flame of purpose within me, piercing through my sadness. I straightened my back as I wiped my eyes. She is here, and she is prepared for battle. I saw Kevin and his parents as we were about to enter the courtroom again, and their arrogant looks strengthened my determination. This was no longer just about me. It was also about proving to my kids what it meant to stand up for oneself and escape their hold on me. After inhaling deeply, I squared my shoulders. The conflict had not ended. It was only getting started, and this time, I was prepared for battle. With my pulse racing, I watched the judge get ready to hand down his decision in the courtroom. It had taken months of struggles, restless nights, and unwavering resolve to get to this point. Seated on the other side were Kevin and his parents, their expressions a mix of hate and confidence. The judge's voice echoed through the hushed chamber as he spoke. This court has carefully considered all presented evidence in the matter of custody for Jason and Harriet. Feeling Stephen's comforting presence alongside me, I held my breath. The world appeared to stop when the judge announced that Amelia Matthews would receive primary custody and that Kevin Matthews would have significant visitation rights. As the court proceeded to go over the specifics of the custody agreement, I could only concentrate on a tremendous sensation of relief and vindication that rushed over me. I heard Kevin's mother gasp and saw Kevin's face crumple in shock. Stephen looked up at me. His smile was contagious, encouraging, and more than that, it made my heart skip a beat. Kevin came over to me outside the courthouse, his parents watching from a distance. "Amelia, I'm sorry for everything," he murmured quietly. I nodded, astonished that I didn't feel angry. "I apologize as well, Kevin, but this is best for all of us." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders as they left. Not only had I prevailed in a custody dispute, but I also won my independence. Jasmine came running up and gave me a bear hug. "You succeeded, girl. I knew you could." I laughed so hard that happy tears ran down my cheeks. "Jasmine, without you, I could not have succeeded. You gave me hope when I had none that night at the hotel, and you rescued me." She gave my hand a squeeze. "That is the purpose of friends. Go now and enjoy the occasion with your children and perhaps a specific attractive lawyer." I looked at Stephen, who was putting his briefcase away, and his face flushed. My gut gave me that recognizable flutter as our eyes locked. After a happy reunion with Harriet and Jason later that evening, I sat on Jasmine's porch and watched the sunset. Stephen came over to join me, holding 2 glasses of wine. He handed me a glass and said, "To new beginnings." I grinned and gently tapped my glass against his. "Towards fresh starts." Stephen finally said something after a little period of comfortable silence. "You know, Amelia, from what I've seen these past few months, you're amazing. I can see that you've changed from that first day when you came into my office because of the way you battled for yourself and your kids." I nodded, a wave of pride rising within me. "I'm not. I just discovered aspects of myself I had assumed were lost forever." Stephen reached out to touch me, and his touch ignited something within me. "Maybe we could grab dinner sometime, just the 2 of us, now that the dust has settled." I saw warmth, adoration, and the potential for more as I gazed into his eyes. I paused for a second, old worries threatening to come back, but then I remembered all that I had accomplished and all that I had conquered. "Yes, please," I murmured quietly. I thought back on my journey, including the hardships, times of hopelessness, and agony that have led me here. As the last of the sunshine illuminated the sky in dazzling hues, I realized this was where they had all led. I had regained my strength, my freedom, and a network of support I never realized I needed. Even though the future was still unknown, I felt optimistic about it for the first time in a long time. I still had my independence, my kids, and maybe a future worth of love ahead of me. This wasn't simply the end, this was only the beginning. As I savored my wine and felt Stephen's warm hand in mine, I understood that this was my start, and I was prepared to enjoy every second of it. "If we have Amy's heart, we can save Hannah," my husband David said. "Agree to organ donation and push Amy down the stairs or hit her if you need help. I will do it. In any case, give Amy's heart to Hannah." My husband asked me to make our daughter almost die to offer her heart for his niece. Facing his outrageous demand, I felt like I was going insane. David and I had been married for about 5 years, and our daughter Amy was born 1 year after we got married. From the time I was pregnant, David seemed to have no interest in our unborn child. When I told him about my pregnancy, his response was an indifferent, "Oh, is that so?" Perhaps it was due to the hormonal imbalance caused by pregnancy, but I remember shouting at David, "Why aren't you happy?" We ended up in a fight. I didn't think David hated children. After all, when my sister Sarah gave birth to her daughter Hannah, David, who was my boyfriend at the time, was so moved that he held the newborn Hannah and cried. "Babies are so small," he said through his tears. The look in his eyes as he touched Hannah's soft cheek was full of love. Yet, for some reason, David seemed to dislike Amy, his own daughter, even before she was born. When we found out the gender, and I told him it looked like a girl, all he said was, "Oh." When I asked him if he would attend the birth, he immediately replied, "No." Even if he didn't hate children, I thought he might be afraid of becoming a father, and I tried to forcibly accept his terrible attitude. Then Amy was born safely. She was so lovely at first sight, and her tiny hand grasping my finger was too adorable. But David had no interest in Amy. When Sarah came to see the baby with Hannah, who was 2 years older than Amy, David was only fond of Hannah. There was always this question: why? Why wouldn't David ever hold Amy? Why did David always look annoyed when Amy came to him? When I confronted him with these questions, he always answered irritably, "I'm busy with work. I can't afford to spend time on the child." David had a strong ambition to rise and seemed eager to get promoted as soon as possible. He actively took on work, and there were days when he would be holed up in his room at home writing business proposals. Perhaps work was the most important thing to David. Still, I had always wished for him to consider his family first. I might be selfish, but I had always wanted him to watch Amy grow up with me. Amy started going to kindergarten and playing with her friends lively every day. I felt like I had been raising her all by myself. But I made some mom friends, and my loneliness was somewhat relieved. When I consulted my mom friends about David, one of them, a straightforward and big sisterly woman, bluntly suggested, "Why don't you get divorced? Raising a child should be a joint effort between husband and wife. Being busy at work is no excuse at all, and isn't Amy 4 years old? I'm surprised you've put up with this for so long." There are also kids who get hurt more when their parents get divorced as they grow older. So if you're going to make a decision, sooner is better. I might be sticking my nose in your business. What she said was very reasonable, and I've been considering divorce myself. But I couldn't make up my mind. I was constantly worrying about whether I could raise Amy on my own or whether it was okay to arbitrarily take away Amy's father from her, even though he was such a bad father. So her words were not unwelcome at all, but rather a relief, giving me a strong push in the back. I decided to discuss divorce with David. The night I made the decision, after Amy fell asleep, David came to me with a shocking request: to give Amy's heart to our niece, Hannah. David had researched organ donation and found it was possible for a child to receive a transplant with parental consent. I had only just found out from David, not Hannah's mother Sarah, that Hannah was suffering from a severe heart condition and could not live much longer. "We need to get Amy's heart to Hannah as soon as possible," David said, agitated. "I need a moment," I protested, my voice sounding more like a scream. "What's going on? I feel sorry for Hannah." "But why does David know about this?" "Because Hannah is my child," David said. I was so shocked I couldn't speak. I felt sick. Despite David being right in front of me, leaning on the dining table and holding his head, I couldn't feel him close. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice shaking. David, unable to hide his irritation, started explaining his desperate situation. It seemed like David had a crush on Sarah, who was a year younger than me, for a long time. He had once proposed to her, but Sarah chose Kyle, the man she is now married to. Sarah had a reputation for being flirtatious, but it seemed she had restrained herself since meeting Kyle. However, she had apparently been secretly meeting with David quite often. David said Sarah chose Kyle, not him, because Kyle was a civil servant. David earned less than the average salaried worker, and his salary would hardly increase unless he got promoted. David's strong ambition was to get promoted quickly and take Sarah away from Kyle. Sarah was raising Hannah as Kyle's child, but she promised that if David got promoted and started earning more, she would definitely leave Kyle and come live with him and Hannah. "Then why did you marry me?" I asked. "By marrying you, I can stay close to Sarah and naturally have more opportunities to see Hannah." "You married me for such a reason?" I asked, my voice breaking. I loved David, but he never really saw me. The fact made me miserable and frustrated. To my despair, David added fuel to the fire. "Amy isn't my child, is she? Amy doesn't look like me at all. She must be the child of some unknown man. Hannah's life is far more important than Amy's. Amy's heart should be given to Hannah." I felt as if something inside me had snapped. I'm not sure whether it was my love for David or my patience that snapped. Anyway, the man in front of me looked like some horrible monster. "I swear I haven't cheated. Don't lump me together with people like you. Amy is definitely our child, but you're right. Amy doesn't resemble you. She is not a ruthless, unreasonable person like you. She's very kind." David glared at me angrily, but I was no longer afraid. As a mother, I was determined to protect Amy at all costs. I thought it would be dangerous to stay in this house with Amy, so I decided to leave immediately. I woke Amy up, carrying only the bare essentials so as not to alert David, who had started working on the project report he needed for his promotion to be with Sarah. Amy, half asleep, asked, "What's going on?" I hugged her tightly and whispered, "Amy, we're saying goodbye to Dad. We're going to Grandpa and Grandma's house. You won't be able to see your kindergarten friends anymore, but can you bear with it?" My desperate voice must have conveyed something to Amy. She nodded in agreement, her voice filled with tension. Holding Amy, I quietly left the house and ran towards the station. I considered taking the car, but thought it would be troublesome if David asked for it back. Once we got to the train, Amy, tired, fell asleep, but we managed to reach the vicinity of my parents' home close to the last train time. I ignored the numerous calls and messages from David, who must have noticed our absence, and pressed the intercom at my parents' house. My parents, still awake, were surprised. "What happened?" they asked, but I requested to put Amy to bed first. After laying Amy to sleep on the second floor, I explained the situation to my parents. I confessed my intention to break up with David. They were shocked by David's cruelty and despaired to know that Sarah was raising her child with David as Kyle's child. No parent would be happy knowing their child is engaged in such deception. Knowing that Amy's life was in danger, they allowed Amy and me to live in their home. The next day, unable to sleep, we greeted the morning. Amy seemed to not fully grasp the situation, but she was extremely happy to see her grandparents. As I watched my parents lovingly observe Amy, I remembered the words a friend had told me, "You should divorce him as soon as possible." She had been right. It was possible that David had been planning to harm Amy without even consulting me. The thought sent chills down my spine. I ignored all of David's messages and texted him, "I will be seeking a divorce through lawyers. You are never to see Amy again." Shortly afterwards, I received a phone call from David's parents. "What is going on?" "David just contacted us abruptly saying that you two are divorcing. Is it true that your affair is the cause and Amy isn't related by blood to David?" In order to counteract David's attempts to get his parents on his side and reclaim Amy, I disclosed everything to his parents. Their disbelief was evident, so I invited them to my parents' house that day since my parents had said they would invite Sarah and Kyle over that evening to discuss things. David's parents lived relatively nearby and agreed to come over. That evening, while my mother took care of Amy, I was in the living room with Sarah, Kyle, my father, and David's parents. It seemed that Hannah was still hospitalized. Sarah looked uncomfortable, while Kyle wore an angry expression. I had previously told Kyle over the phone about the events that had occurred the previous day and what David had said. He was probably unable to hide his anger towards Sarah. "So Hannah really isn't my daughter, is she? It's true that David was planning to take Amy's heart to save Hannah, isn't it?" Kyle demanded. Sarah, who had been biting her lip, burst into tears under Kyle's questioning. "Yes, but I..." Sarah's ugliness as she yelled was beyond description. I thought it would be dangerous to stay in this house with Amy, so I decided to leave immediately. I woke Amy up, carrying only the bare essentials, so as not to alert David, who had started working on the project report he needed for his promotion to be with Sarah. Amy, half asleep, asked, "What's going on?" I hugged her tightly and whispered, "Amy, we're saying goodbye to Dad. We're going to Grandpa and Grandma's house. You won't be able to see your kindergarten friends anymore, but can you bear with it?" My desperate voice must have conveyed something to Amy. She nodded in agreement, her voice filled with tension. Holding Amy, I quietly left the house and ran towards the station. I considered taking the car, but thought it would be troublesome if David asked for it back. Once we got to the train, Amy, tired, fell asleep, but we managed to reach the vicinity of my parents' home close to the last train time. I ignored the numerous calls and messages from David, who must have noticed our absence, and pressed the intercom at my parents' house. My parents, still awake, were surprised. "What happened?" they asked, but I requested to put Amy to bed first. After laying Amy to sleep on the second floor, I explained the situation to my parents. I confessed my intention to break up with David. They were shocked by David's cruelty and despaired to know that Sarah was raising her child with David as Kyle's child. No parent would be happy knowing their child is engaged in such deception. Knowing that Amy's life was in danger, they allowed Amy and me to live in their home. The next day, unable to sleep, we greeted the morning. Amy seemed to not fully grasp the situation, but she was extremely happy to see her grandparents. As I watched my parents lovingly observe Amy, I remembered the words a friend had told me. You should divorce him as soon as possible. She had been right. It was possible that David had been planning to harm Amy without even consulting me. The thought sent chills down my spine. I ignored all of David's messages and texted him. I will be seeking a divorce through lawyers. You are never to see Amy again. Shortly afterwards, I received a phone call from David's parents. What is going on? David just contacted us abruptly saying that you two are divorcing. Is it true that your affair is the cause and Amy isn't related by blood to David? In order to counteract David's attempts to get his parents on his side and reclaim Amy, I disclosed everything to his parents. Their disbelief was evident, so I invited them to my parents' house that day since my parents had said they would invite Sarah and Kyle over that evening to discuss things. David's parents lived relatively nearby and agreed to come over. That evening, while my mother took care of Amy, I was in the living room with Sarah, Kyle, my father, and David's parents. It seemed that Hannah was still hospitalized. Sarah looked uncomfortable while Kyle wore an angry expression. I had previously told Kyle over the phone about the events that had occurred the previous day and what David had said. He was probably unable to hide his anger towards Sarah. So Hannah really isn't my daughter, is she? It's true that David was planning to take Amy's heart to save Hannah, isn't it? Kyle demanded. Although my father and I were present, Sarah started talking like a tragic heroine. I wanted to help Hannah. That's why I asked David for Amy's heart. As a mother, it's natural, isn't it? How can you not understand the feeling of wanting to protect your own child? Is it because Kyle and Hannah aren't connected by blood that you can't understand? Despite exposing her own infidelity, Sarah was crying like a victim, and Kyle sighed deeply. His clenched fist was shaking, and I worried he might hit Sarah at any moment, but Kyle seemed to be making an effort to speak rationally. I've always believed and raised Hannah as my true daughter. I was confused when I was told that Hannah is Sarah and David's child. But my feelings of caring for Hannah haven't changed. If I could cure Hannah's disease, I'd do anything. Then taking Amy's heart is no big deal. To go as far as taking the life of your niece to save Hannah? You and David are abnormal. Sarah, who was yelled at by Kyle, started crying loudly. I am so sorry. It was heartbreaking to see my father apologize deeply to Kyle. David's parents, who had been listening in disbelief until now, also deeply apologized to Kyle and me alongside my father. Our foolish son, we are truly sorry, my father-in-law said, his voice trembling. I could feel the enormity of the crime Sarah and David committed. Since the meeting was held to confirm the facts, once Sarah admitted her affair, the purpose of the meeting was achieved. As Kyle said, I'll divorce Sarah, and stood up, Sarah shouted. Wait. How am I supposed to live now? Who's going to pay for Hannah's treatment? Almost at the same time, I heard the sound of a car entering the garage. David wasn't invited to this meeting, and I thought it would be scary if something happened to Amy, but David must have known that the only place I could go was my parents' house. David, who intruded into our house, seemed to realize that all of his wrongdoings had been revealed when he saw his parents apologizing to me, Kyle, and Sarah clinging to Kyle and crying. His face, which was red with anger, turned pale instantly, and even in that situation he asked, Where's Amy? I stood up and slapped his cheek. Hannah is innocent. I feel sorry for her because she got sick, but I will never forgive you for trying to harm Amy. David, holding his slapped cheek, seemed surprised by my anger. I thought I was a quiet person. I didn't know such emotions were sleeping inside me. In the heat of my rising anger, I lunged at David. You're the only one who's cuckolded. Amy is undoubtedly our child. You and Sarah are the ones who are messed up for doing the lowest things as humans. Don't think everyone's as messed up as you. Thanks to my father telling me to stop in the face of my raging self, I was able to regain some composure. David, who had been yelled at by me, looked at Sarah with a bewildered expression. Sarah, who had been clinging to Kyle's waist, was shaken off by Kyle. David, I'm divorcing Sarah. If you want to marry her, go ahead. But I won't ever give you Hannah. I won't hand her over to fiends like you. Kyle's harsh, low voice, as if uttering a curse, seemed to freeze both Sarah and David in fear. Subsequently, Sarah and David were driven out of their homes and disowned by their parents. Through the lawyers, Kyle divorced Sarah and successfully won custody of Hannah. Apparently, Sarah was often out, and most of the caregiving was done by Kyle, who took a long leave from work. I also divorced David through a lawyer. David sent a spiteful text saying, "Now I can marry Sarah." But Sarah and David didn't get married. Their parents severed ties with Sarah. But afterward, Sarah had a mental breakdown and had to be hospitalized. Even though Sarah had been unfaithful, it seemed she cared about Hannah. Not being able to see Hannah broke Sarah's spirit. Kyle scoffed at her, saying, "She used to complain about how troublesome taking care of her was, though, and I felt the same way." Amy and I are living peacefully at my parents' home. At her new daycare, Amy seems to have made new friends, and she's growing up healthy and lively. I still keep in touch with Kyle. According to him, Hannah is due to have a heart transplant operation. When Amy and I went to visit Hannah, she gave us a cute smile and said to Amy, "Once the surgery is over, let's play a lot together." Both Kyle and I have been through tough times, but we've now resolved to raise our children responsibly as parents. As two single parents, we promise to support each other. I smiled, imagining the future of Hannah playing with Amy. Hello everyone, this is Ashley, speaking to you through my writing. All the names I've used are fake because I own a fairly successful business and I don't want this story coming back to me. Here's a bit of background about me and the people in this story. I met Carter through work. We were both doing the same side job after college. It wasn't anything fancy. We were McDonald's employees. He was working to pay for college, while I was working to survive since I didn't have the means to pay for college. I have a lot of regrets about that. I lost my parents in an accident and didn't have any family to take care of me. Coming from a poor household, there wasn't much money left for me, so college was always out of the question. Now let's talk about Carter's mother, Sandra. Sandra had a fancy college degree and considered herself better than everyone else. She is a true narcissist, loves to control people and meddle in their lives. She was super mean to me and made fun of me for not having a college degree. When I was young and naive, I let her bully me into doing things for her. I used to drive her places, cancel or make plans according to her demands, and more. Slowly, I realized that Sandra didn't care about me at all. She was simply enjoying the power trip of having control over someone like me. When I realized this, I started to distance myself. However, when Carter's father died, Sandra clung to us like a leech. She loved dictating our lives even after Carter and I got married. When we moved away for work, she followed us and demanded that Carter take on all her financial responsibilities. At that time, Carter had just bought a house and didn't have the means to support his mom. He said, "Sandra, I don't know what to do about my mom. I'm sick with worry. She refuses to get a job, and God knows why she moved here." I replied, "I think we both know why. Sandra is trying not to lose her control over us. Don't forget she convinced you not to put me on the house deed because she thinks we'll divorce in the future." "I know, Ashley. She's just worried about me. Now I don't know what to do about her." "I guess I'll have to take a second job," Carter said. I didn't let Carter take a second job. He already had a lot on his plate with a stressful job and a big mortgage. Since I wasn't allowed to contribute towards the mortgage or any rent, I decided to pay Sandra's rent and groceries until she got back on her feet. I hoped she would come to her senses and finally get a job. But Sandra never took a job. I paid her rent and groceries for a year. She didn't know I was paying, but her nonchalance at being so dependent on others was astonishing. Her controlling behavior got worse. She was convinced that the business I had started 2 years earlier was a hobby and didn't earn any money. So she tried to micromanage me by keeping track of my spending and berating me for buying anything for myself. It was incredibly annoying, and she wouldn't stop even after Carter talked to her. Sandra continued to harass me about my expenses and berate me for freeloading on her son. It was bizarre since she was the one freeloading on us, but I kept my mouth shut. That was until the day she angrily came to our house and said, "What is this I'm hearing? Carter told me you were going on a vacation. This better not be true. Tell me, Ashley, are you really going on a vacation?" "Yes, Sandra, we booked everything for 3 months from now. Carter and I have been working very hard for the past year, so we thought of taking a break," I replied. "You can't waste money on a vacation when you're broke. I will not allow you to waste my son's hard-earned money like that. Only deserving people can go on vacations. You should stay at home and get your finances in check. But we already agreed on the plans and booked everything, Sandra. We can't just cancel it. We will lose a lot of money. No, you won't, Ashley. I can replace you on the trip. Carter and I will have a lot of fun, and hopefully this will teach you to manage money better. My son won't be feeding you for the rest of your life, you know. Sandra wanted me out of this trip while she inserted herself in my place. Since we didn't offer her to join us on this vacation, Sandra came up with this plan instead. She wasn't faking her concern for my financial well-being. She had always been convinced that I made less money and that Carter shouldered all my expenses. Sandra just used this opportunity to kill two birds with one stone. But I wasn't going to let her get away with her behavior. She needed to be put back in her place. After years of being insulted by her, I wasn't going to take this any longer. I said, "Looks like you thought things through very carefully, Sandra. You made a whole plan about how you would replace me on this vacation." "Of course, I made a whole plan. It is my son's money that you are going to waste. I know that your little hobby doesn't generate any profit and you rely on my son to fund it. It is already ridiculous that he wastes a lot of money on your hobby, but thankfully, I'm here to make sure you don't exploit him and bleed him dry." Well, the hobby you keep referring to is an actual business, Sandra, and I don't see how you are any different from me. You don't pay your own rent or even pay for your own groceries. How I live my life is none of your business, Ashley. I am not answerable to you. You should concentrate on your own life and stop wasting money. You need to focus on being financially better, and after that, you can go on a luxury vacation. So how Sandra lived her life was none of my business, but somehow my life was always Sandra's business. That's some intense double standard right there. It just showed how controlling and entitled Sandra was. She really expected me to listen to her and abandon the vacation I paid for while she had a gala time with Carter. I couldn't believe the audacity of this woman. By then, I had reached the limit of my patience. I calmly looked at her and said, "You are right, Sandra. I guess I really should make better financial decisions. I've been wasting my money on some stupid things for a while now. Good that you are listening to me and realizing the importance of money. I'm sure you will make some wise decisions and avoid unnecessary expenses." "That is right, Sandra. Thank you for being the ever-present tree of wisdom. I will take your advice and start saving money immediately." Sandra's eyes lit up with satisfaction. She thought she had gotten her way, that she had successfully stopped me from having fun while bagging herself a luxury vacation. Once again, she believed she had exerted control over her daughter-in-law and satisfied her huge ego. But those were all dreams. I wasn't going to give her what she wanted. Sandra didn't know that. She simply smiled at me and said, "So you will be canceling the vacation to save money, right?" "I never said that, Sandra. But you can't afford to spend so much money on a vacation. You need to save money and then think of luxury expenses." "Okay then. I will stop paying your rent to save money. I'm sure that if I stop paying your rent starting this month, I can easily save $6,000 by the time I leave for my vacation." Now it was Sandra's turn to be surprised. She was really taken aback when I said that. She looked nervous and tried to gauge my attitude. She wanted to be sure she had heard me correctly. I stayed cheerful, smiling widely at her the whole time. She looked flustered and said, "What? What the hell are you talking about? What do you mean you'll stop paying my rent? My son pays my rent." "Oh, you didn't know, Sandra? Well, I've been paying your rent for the past year. Your son already has a lot on his plate with the mortgage, so he begged me to help." No, that's impossible. You are lying to me. Carter is the one paying for my rent. You cannot afford my rent. You don't even have much money." Again, Sandra, the hobby you keep talking about is an actual business. So yes, I do have money since my business has been running quite well. In fact, I earn more than Carter at times, so I was the one sending you rent money. No, this must be one of your lies. You just want to go on a vacation and be a spendthrift. So you're making up lies and trying to make it look like you earn good money. I was amused at Sandra's grave denial. She was still convinced that I was a loser who needed to be controlled and groomed. It was pathetic and insulting. Sandra was being a huge witch, and she would soon pay for it. As if God was watching, Carter arrived home right then. He could sense the tension in the room and said, "Hey guys, what's going on?" "Carter, your wife has gone crazy. She's saying that she's been paying my rent." "That is true, Mom. Ashley has been paying your rent for the past year. Since I bought the house, I'm responsible for the mortgage, so she has been helping you out with rent and even groceries." Sandra looked absolutely shocked when Carter confirmed what I said. My poor husband was very confused about what was happening. Sandra looked openly anxious while I just sweetly smiled at her. Carter, still puzzled, said, "Guys, please tell me what's going on. This is not looking too good." While Sandra here wanted me to cancel my vacation and stay at home. Something about saving money and all. What, Mom? I told you to stay away from this topic. We talked about it. Mom, what the hell? Sandra looked like she was caught in a crime. She had already approached Carter about the vacation. I was already very curious and wanted to know more. Sandra talked to you about this before? Yes, Ashley. I didn't tell you because I knew you would be annoyed. Mom, what the hell? Will you stop meddling in our lives and try to control us? Ashley, what did she tell you? Oh, she wanted me to stay at home and save money so that I don't mooch off of you any longer. She had an entire plan about how she would replace me on the vacation and go with you instead of me. Carter looked really pissed. I didn't need to tell him that Sandra had also insulted me a lot. He knew what his mother was up to. Sandra was looking really panicked and knew what was coming. When Carter gets mad, he raises hell. He said, "Mom, what the hell is wrong with you? When will you freaking stop demeaning my wife? I told you to stay away from my family matters." Carter, you don't understand. I am family. I can't see my son go broke because he married a loser like Ashley. I mean, she's planning a luxury vacation after earning peanuts from her hobby. Mom, Ashley runs a damn business and she gets enough money to afford 2 vacations like this in a year. I told you that already. I'm sure Ashley has been living off your income for a while. You were just trying to protect her. You don't have to lie to me, son. There is no way she is earning so much money from a small business. She isn't even a college graduate. Sandra really messed up by saying that. She hit a nerve. It has always been a sore spot for me. In her frenzy of proving herself right, Sandra ended up hitting the most sensitive part of my life. I was instantly angry, and Carter was even more furious. He said, "Mom, how dare you say that? I've told you multiple times not to disrespect my wife. You still haven't stopped. But I'm only telling the truth. Ashley isn't even that educated. She needs to learn from people who are. So she needs to cancel this ridiculous vacation and focus on saving money. Mom, stop this right now. You have no right to humiliate my wife like that. You have lost all respect I have for you. This is insane. Carter, you are overreacting. You need to stop sheltering your wife and lying to her. Ashley clearly can't make enough money, so I'm guiding her better. I'm sure Ashley will appreciate my advice." Sandra was full of herself as usual. She expected me to agree with her. How could I not? I was a poor woman with no college degree, right? That's what she thought. But she didn't know that I didn't need college to be better than her. I smiled at her and said, "I don't need your advice, Sandra. I am a successful woman who definitely doesn't need advice from someone who lives off others. But you are right, I really should not waste my money on unnecessary things. So I will do as I planned. I will stop paying your rent and grocery bills starting next month." "Ha? I don't believe your threats, Ashley. My son will pay my rent and grocery bills. You never spend a cent on me anyway. You're just lying." "Okay then, here, check these out. I have digital records of all the money I sent to you from my own account." I handed my phone to Sandra and let her see all the proof I had. She kept scrolling through the transactions and even saw how much I made every month. Her eyes bulged out, and she couldn't believe what she was seeing. But she had to believe it. It was some damn good evidence. Sandra scrolled through my bank transactions and then laughed nervously before saying, "Oh, this is great. I'm glad my daughter-in-law is doing so well in life. It's truly amazing how talented you are. Looks like you won't have to save money for the vacation after all." "Oh, no, Sandra. You were right. I was wasting my money and not making good savings every month. I really do need to cut back on my expenses. I'm sure 1 month's notice is all you need to get a new place or figure out a way to pay your rent." "Oh, come on now. Let's not be hasty about the rent. I'm just a poor old woman who made a mistake. Let's not hold grudges." "This is not a grudge, Sandra. You have opened my eyes to how badly I messed up by taking on your financial responsibilities. You are in perfect health, and I am sure you will find a great job with your fancy college degree. You better start looking because you have 1 month." I said this with a very serious face. Sandra knew that I wasn't joking. I really was going to stop paying her rent, and she could say goodbye to the grocery bills I was paying every month as well. Sandra immediately went into a panic and started to cry. Ashley, please don't do this. I was pretty stupid to suggest you cancel your vacation. That was rude of me. I'm sorry. You can definitely go ahead with your plans. Oh my God, thanks for the permission, Sandra. Not that I ever needed your input on how to live my life. I will be going on this vacation and I will be cutting you off from rent as well. That's final. Carter, please make Ashley see reason. She's threatening me because she's mad at me. Won't you support your poor and elderly mother? Sandra had now turned to my husband for help, thinking Carter would side with her. What she didn't know was that Carter was done with her too. We had been discussing Sandra's controlling behavior and had decided to cut her off after the next fiasco. And this was her last strike. Carter wasn't going to speak in her favor anymore. He said, I support Ashley wholeheartedly, Mom. She's right in her decision. She was generous enough to help you when you intentionally left your last job. But you have always just berated her and tried to dominate her because you have a college degree. I know I was wrong, Carter. I've already apologized for it. Your wife is being stubborn. What you did today was the last straw for us, Mom. One apology doesn't solve it. We've been letting you get away with your controlling behavior for a long time now, but we won't do that anymore. We will start by cutting you off financially. You cannot do that to me, Carter. You cannot take your wife's side over me. I'm your mother. You know that I won't be able to pay the rent. Do you want to see your poor mother homeless? Like Sandra said, Mom, you have a college degree, so you'll get a job. It's time for you to live your own life and leave us alone. I guess you should take your own advice and start saving money now. Sandra was pretty upset when we presented a united front. She tried to argue with us but finally left after we kicked her out. Carter and I talked about our next steps and decided that we indeed wanted to cut her off financially. Carter wasn't in a position to help his mom anyway. As for me, we both agreed that I wasn't wasting my money on someone who didn't deserve it. So we made the final decision and were pretty happy with it. Sandra was under the impression that we were only mad temporarily. She was so confident of her power over us that she refused to contact or apologize to us again. But as the month passed and she still didn't get her rent money, she started to panic again. She showed up at our house and made a big scene, begging for our forgiveness. Ashley, please, I'm sorry. I promise to stick to my own business from now on. Please don't cut me off financially like this. The decision has already been made, Sandra. Your new resolution will not change it in any way. But I will lose my apartment, Ashley. Where will I go? I'll be homeless. I barely have money for food. You should have thought about that before trying to humiliate me and control my life. If you don't have money, you can get a job. You are not my problem anymore. Carter, will you not support your mom even a little? I'm telling you that I'm willing to change. I talked to you about these things, Mom. You never listened to me. We've already given you 2 main chances. From experience, I can tell that you won't change. It's best if we have some distance between us. Ashley and I are going low contact with you for now. If you do anything more stupid, we will cut off contact completely. Just to be clear, Sandra, even if we ever reconcile, you will never get financial help from us again. And don't bother waiting on rent money. I have already used it to upgrade our suite and book some extra activities for our vacation. See, I did save money and made my vacation even better. Thanks for the advice, Sandra. Sandra started to cry again once we were done talking. The last thing I said to her must have hammered home that she had really messed up her perfect life all by herself. She kept begging and pleading with us for mercy, but we didn't show her any. She finally left when she saw that we weren't even paying attention to her anymore. After that, she kept harassing us on our phones and social media. That was when we both blocked her for good. 3 months later, we went on the vacation we had planned so diligently. I was so happy to finally treat my husband to a luxury vacation on my own dime. Carter was super happy and promised to make it up to me. He didn't have to though because I found out that he had added me to his house deed. It was a pleasant surprise, and I didn't know what to say. Carter simply said that he did it because it felt right. He finally understood that he was holding back a lot due to the insecurities that his mother drilled into him. Sandra fed him some major lies so she could keep him under control. He went along because he didn't know any better, but now he's slowly starting to change after we removed Sandra from our lives. Meanwhile, Sandra did end up taking a small job. Because of the huge gap in her resume, she couldn't get a well-paying job. She had to settle for a low-paying job, especially because our town didn't have many good jobs and she hadn't worked even after getting a college degree. She moved to a small rented apartment and shares it with roommates. She tries to reach out at times, but we ignore her. Carter is seeing a therapist, and a lot more of Sandra's controlling behavior is coming to the surface. Sorry, but I don't feel comfortable sharing it here. Carter is working on it, so it looks like we won't be having a relationship with Sandra anytime soon. Hello everyone, my name is Sienna, and I'm here to share a story of my own. Reading all these nerve-wracking tales about crazy mother-in-laws reminded me of my own experiences with my entitled mother-in-law, Cindy, who believed the world revolved around her. Let me tell you the story. My husband Drago is Cindy's only child. His father passed away when he was young, and Cindy had to step up to care for him. She never let him forget it. Cindy was a veiled narcissist who thrived on making herself feel powerful and important. She raised Drago to always give in to her demands and never question her decisions. Cindy was a very entitled woman who demanded obedience or else there would be consequences. Naturally, no one wanted her in their life and cut her off, which made things worse for Drago, who became her main victim. Cindy met her match when Drago and I got married. When we were dating, Drago was always reluctant to introduce me to his mother. When I finally met her a few days after our engagement, I realized she was the problem, not me. Since Drago had moved in with me, Cindy was slowly starting to lose control over her son. He no longer wanted to give in to her demands or fund her extravagant lifestyle. She, of course, blamed me for changing him. I ignored her nasty talk for a while because she didn't live with us, but one day she suddenly showed up at my house with her suitcases in tow. Sorry for not informing you earlier, but I will be staying with you for a while, she announced. What? Why, Mom? What happened to your apartment? Drago asked. Well, I got evicted because you don't bother to send me money anymore. I guess this is what you wanted, to see your poor mother homeless. Sienna changed you a lot, you know. Mom, you were spending money on frivolous things and always kept asking for more. That's not a way to live your life. Don't teach me how to live my life. I raised you, not the other way around. I ran into some financial trouble and got evicted because of you, so you are obligated to house me until I get back on my feet. I will tolerate your stupid wife, but you need to get rid of that nasty dog. I stood open-mouthed while she made her ridiculous demands. The dog she was referring to was my 7-year-old golden retriever, Leo. I was stunned and barely registered when she told Drago that we needed to get rid of my dog for her. Leo was my family, not something I could just throw away. I was ready to shout at Cindy when Drago took me aside and said, I know you're mad, but let's not turn this into a fight. It's true that I haven't been sending her money whenever she wants, and I feel a little guilty that she lost the house because of me. Can we let her stay for a few months, please? Dro, you know how toxic and manipulative your mother is. None of her financial problems are your fault. You don't need to feel guilty. The audacity of this woman is astounding. She even wants to get rid of Leo. Do you expect me to get rid of Leo? Sienna, please, you know I would never let that happen. Leo is my family too. I won't throw him out because of my mom. But I can't just throw my mom out either. Please, just a few days. I swear I'll find a way to get her out. Drago's desperation and guilt made me feel bad for him. It was his mom after all, and he wasn't exactly capable of standing up to her yet. He begged me to let Cindy stay, and I reluctantly agreed. Drago told Cindy the good news, but sternly informed her that Leo was not going anywhere. Cindy tried to make a scene, but we both put our foot down. She huffed and puffed but accepted it. All seemed well for a few months, but Cindy had no intention of recovering financially. She refused to look for a job, leached off us, littered the house, never cleaned, and didn't contribute a single penny towards anything. Instead, she regularly asked for money for who knows what. She lived like she owned my place and constantly referred to it as her house. Her attitude towards Leo was also remarkably bad, and we had plenty of screaming matches about it. I was at my wit's end. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, I had a bad fall, broke my arm, and had a mild concussion. Any guesses as to what happened? Cindy had left the hairdryer on the floor of my bathroom. Drago was away on an important business meeting and couldn't come back, so my best friend drove me to the hospital since Cindy refused, citing that she needed to stay at the house to take care of it. I was too dazed to argue. I was kept at the hospital overnight due to the concussion. They did x-rays and other tests, which took a long time. I had to stay with my best friend while my mother-in-law did God knows what in the house. I had a bad feeling about leaving her alone with Leo since she hated him so much, but I wasn't in a condition to do anything until I got discharged. I took an Uber home the next day and hurried to make sure Leo was fed and taken care of. As soon as I walked in, I called out to Leo. I was met with silence. A minute later, I saw Cindy. "Cindy, where is Leo?" I called, but he didn't answer me. "Did you look after him and feed him last night?" "Oh, that filthy animal. I got rid of it." "What?" It felt like I was struck by a thunderbolt. My insides were screaming and my heart pounded wildly against my rib cage. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Cindy got rid of my dog. Cindy ignored my shocked face and continued, "Animals can't stay in this house. They don't pay rent, they don't clean up after themselves, and they are useless. They belong on the streets or in a shelter. My home will not have one of those wild and disgusting things around." I was reeling with anger when Cindy spoke like that. I was too stressed about my poor dog to waste my energy shouting at her, so I calmly looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You are right, Cindy. Pets can really be a burden when they don't look after the house or pay rent. It's important for us to recognize when this happens and kick them to the curb immediately. Finally, my wise words have gone through your thick brain. I thought you would never understand. You should always listen to the woman in charge of the house." "I know what's best for my house and family," Cindy replied, looking pleased with herself. "Your words are truly wise, Cindy. Thank you for opening my eyes today. This new perspective will be very helpful for me in the future," I said. Cindy was smug, thinking she had successfully gotten rid of the dirty animal from her home. She believed she could now settle into my house, which she had already started calling hers. She always considered herself the matriarch, no matter whose house she was staying in. I had been putting off confronting her for as long as I could, but this was the last straw. No one messed with me and my family, which included my dog, Leo. I was fuming inside and worried about Leo at the same time, but I kept my face neutral and tried to control my anger. Karma would come for Cindy soon enough, and I would be the one to deliver it. I quickly distracted Cindy and left the house. From what I could tell, Cindy had used my car to drop off Leo at a shelter. I logged onto my car's GPS system to find out where she had gone. I didn't want to ask Cindy directly because she clearly wasn't going to give up the location. She knew I would try to get Leo back, so keeping her in the dark was crucial. I left the house under the guise of getting medicines and called an Uber to the animal shelter where my car's GPS indicated Cindy had gone. I explained the situation to the staff there and gave all the details. Leo was microchipped, so they knew I was the real owner. Thankfully, they understood my situation and let me take Leo after signing some papers. My poor dog was traumatized. He was sitting in the corner of the room, refusing to look at anyone. As soon as he heard me, he leaped from the corner straight into my arms. I won't lie, I cried tears of joy and relief when I held him. At the same time, my rage at Cindy was threatening to overwhelm me. I loaded Leo into my car and went straight home. When I stepped into the house, Cindy took one look at Leo and shrieked. It was a nasty shriek that made Leo bark at her. He wasn't a fan of Cindy anymore. "What the hell, Sienna? What is that filthy animal doing in my house? I didn't get rid of him for you to bring him back." "First of all, Cindy, Leo is mine. You had no right to give him away just like that. What happens to Leo is my decision and mine only, so I did what I wanted and brought my dog back." "Absolutely not, Sienna. I always told you that I won't allow a filthy animal to live in my house. They are nasty and don't pay bills." Yeah. I've heard all that before, Cindy. You've told me those things so many times that I know it by heart now. Well then, get rid of the dog. I can't stand looking at him. He's already messing up the carpet with his nasty dog hair. I don't want dog filth in my house. You better drop him off somewhere and start cleaning my house. At this point, my anger was somewhat reduced. I knew that I wouldn't have to put up with Cindy much longer. I had everything set and all the plans made. I was firm in my decision. I calmly looked at Cindy with a small smile and said, "First of all, Cindy, this is my house, not yours. And secondly, you were right. Animals who don't pay bills or clean up after themselves don't deserve to be in my house. Now let's see which animal doesn't pay bills, thinks the house is hers, and doesn't bother cleaning her mess. Oh my God, it's you, Cindy." "What? How dare you, Sienna? Are you calling me an animal?" We are all some kind of animal, Cindy, and you fit the criteria perfectly. So I have decided I will take your advice and kick out the nasty animal I have in the house. Spoiler alert, it's not Leo. It's you. Cindy looked at me like I had slapped her. There was a tinge of fear and nervousness in her eyes that I hadn't seen before. It gave me a lot of satisfaction to see her afraid. She was used to getting her way with everyone, but in recent years, both her sons were trying to break free from her control. Cindy had realized that and was trying to reinstate her position as the matriarch. That was part of the reason why she was so insistent on moving into my house. Thankfully, I was there to set the record straight. I had no qualms about putting Cindy back in her place. Cindy, unfortunately, had trouble understanding my simple words. She started to tremble and said, "What are you saying? You can't just kick me out. This is my son's house." "No, Cindy," I replied. "This is the house I inherited from my grandfather. The same grandfather who also bought me Leah when I was a teenager. Every little detail just makes it easier for me to kick you out with a clear conscience. I don't care how you got this house. Since you were married to my son, it belongs to him too. And since he is my son, I have a right to be here. You cannot kick me out to house that filthy animal." "Well, I can, and I am kicking you out. You have no right to be here. We housed you because of your poor financial decisions. You were supposed to help yourself recover, not give me extra stress by throwing my dog out. Now I see that you are taking liberties and doing what you want. You want to feel like a matriarch and control other people. Well, that won't happen in my house. So take your stuff and get the hell out. How dare you speak to me like that? Just you wait, you little witch. I will call my son and set you straight." "Sure, Cindy, call him and tell him. Let's see what your son has to say about this." Cindy huffed and called Drago, still confident she could demand whatever she wanted, and we would give in immediately. She was sure her son would take her side and teach me a lesson. She called Dro while eyeing me and Leo with pure distaste. When Dro picked up, this is what happened. "Hello, Mom. What's up? Is everything okay in the house?" "No, everything's not okay in the house. Your crazy wife is threatening to throw me out like an animal. I don't know what I did to deserve this horrible treatment. I'm extremely upset." "Dro, what the hell? What happened? What's going on?" "What Cindy said is true. I am kicking her out of the house. I made the decision a few minutes ago, and I am firm on it. See, Dro, you need to teach your wife some manners. She forgets who is the matriarch of this house. She is disrespecting me and being an absolute nightmare. Never in my life have I ever been treated this badly." Cindy went on and on about her miserable condition in my house while painting herself as the victim. She never once mentioned that she tried to rehome my dog behind my back and justified it with her twisted sense of logic. I waited patiently for Cindy to stop her theatrics. Dro was doing the same. When Cindy showed no signs of slowing down, Dro interrupted her. Okay, calm down, Mom. Let Sienna say her part. Sienna, tell me what's going on. Why did you suddenly want to kick out Mom? You just got back from the hospital. What went wrong?" Cindy should have mentioned it since she thinks she did nothing wrong. Since she didn't, let me tell you what your mom did while I was in the hospital. She took Leo and dropped him off at an animal shelter. "What? Why?" "She said something about filthy animals who don't pay bills or look after themselves. She drove 25 miles to drop off Leo in a shelter. Thankfully, I got him back today since I had proof of ownership and all." There was a very deep silence on Drago's end after I told him what Cindy had done. I knew he was shocked and furious. I had a feeling Cindy could sense it too because she looked hella nervous. After a few seconds of silence, Dro said with suppressed rage, "Mom, for the love of God, please tell me you didn't do that." "Well, I just thought." "Mom, did you try to rehome Leo? What the hell is wrong with you? Watch your tone, Drago. I'm your mother. You don't speak to me like that. You know how I hate animals living under my roof. You've known this all your life. That dog needed to go. I gave some really valid reasons. I don't understand why you're mad." "Are you serious right now? You are living under Sienna's roof and not the other way around. How dare you try to get rid of Leo while my poor wife was recovering from an injury caused by your carelessness?" Drago was raging mad now. Even though I had Leo first, Drago lived with Leo like his own pet. Leo wasn't just a pet, he was family, and you don't mess with Leo and get away with it. Cindy had never seen or heard Dro react to anyone like that. She actually flinched at his tone and looked shocked. Soon it became evident to her that her son wasn't going to take her side. She tried to placate him by softly crying and saying, "Dro, why are you talking to me like that? You're scaring me. You can't be like this with your mom over a stupid dog." Lee was not a stupid dog, Mom. He is my family as well. We made it crystal clear to you when you whined about moving in with us. Sienna let you stay rent-free in her house only to have you backstab her and me. How did you think it was okay? Dro, you're not thinking straight. It's just a dog, that filthy little thing. Stop right now. You are freaking delusional if you think you can justify your actions in any way. Instead of asking for forgiveness from Sienna, you thought that calling me and making me scold her would be correct? Are you insane? Cindy was now crying while clutching her phone. She slowly sank into my new plush sofa and tried to make Dro listen to her twisted reasons. Leah was still behind my legs, trying to stay as far away from Cindy as possible. God knows what that awful woman has done to my sweet boy. My heart ached for him, and I longed to make him feel safe again. While Dro shouted and Cindy cried on the phone, I decided to step in and end the drama ASAP. I said, "Dro, your mom is refusing to leave even after I told her multiple times. Leo is super traumatized and is hiding behind my legs. I can't bear to see him like this anymore." "Oh God, Mom, what did you do to my poor dog?" "You know what? It doesn't matter anymore. I've heard enough already. Mom, you need to leave. You were not welcome in the house anymore. Sienna already told you that, and I am telling you that. I don't want to be in contact with you anymore. I am done with your power play. You have hurt me enough. I won't let you hurt my wife and my new family too." "Oh my God, Joe, what are you saying? You can't let a filthy animal and this witch of a wife come between us. You are my son. I'm your mother. I only did this because I want the best for you. Stop that nonsense right now, Mom. You did what you thought was best for you, like always. You cared nothing about other people. You don't care about your own son and daughter-in-law. I put up with you for years because you're my mother, but not anymore. Not when you're trying to control and hurt my family. Leave the house right now before I call the police on you myself." Drago said that and hung up on her. I told her to pack her things while I carried Leo inside my master bedroom. My best friend had also arrived because I had notified her of the situation on my way to pick up Leo. She would stay at the house with me to take care of me and make sure Cindy got the hell away from all of us. She came into the house and kept an eye on Cindy while she packed her stuff. Cindy would have protested or thrown a tantrum if Dro hadn't been so angry. Plus, the fact that my best friend's husband was a cop also made Cindy hurry up and leave before the cops seriously threw her out. She was crying the entire time, and I could hear her from my room. I comforted Leo and waited for my best friend to give me the signal when my horrible mother-in-law was gone. After Cindy left, I got a rather painful call from Drago. I could tell that he was distressed and that he was blaming himself for what happened. He said, "I'm so sorry, Sienna. This should never have happened. I should have just listened to you and kept my mom at arm's length. If I had, you wouldn't have been hurt and Leo wouldn't have been traumatized." "Dro, don't be so hard on yourself. I knew you had good intentions when you wanted to help out your mom. It's not your fault she refuses to change. But I don't think it will be wise to have her around after this. I for sure would be comfortable." "You don't have to worry about that, Sienna. I'm done with Mom and cutting contact with her for good. I will fly back as soon as possible to be with you, and I will get therapy to make sure I have the spine to tell her off when she comes demanding something from us. This will never happen again. You take care of yourself and Leo." Hearing this made my heart swell a little. I was glad that Dro was finally willing to get therapy to deal with his issues with Cindy. I really didn't want to have any connection to her anymore, and it was Drago's job to set those boundaries. I assured Drago that my best friend would stay with me until he got back. He was somewhat relieved and flew back 2 days later. He was super guilty and kept apologizing over and over again. It broke my heart to see my family suffering because of that awful woman, Cindy. Karma was still pending for Cindy, of course. As I said, she was broke and didn't have a place to stay. She thought that we would calm down and beg her to come back to live with us. She is a true narcissist, although she is too full of herself to ever seek a diagnosis. Anyway, as a week passed, her cash ran out and it became apparent to her that we weren't going to come get her. That's when she returned to our door, begging and pleading for forgiveness. That was fast, but only because she didn't have any money. No family in their right mind would take Cindy in because everyone knew the level of her entitlement. So she had to come back to us. We refused to even open the door and threatened to call the cops if she stayed for long. She was already blocked from all our phones and social media. The extended family was informed of everything, and everyone took our side because they were not crazy like Cindy. Drago, Leo, and I slowly went back to being the happy family we were before Cindy disrupted everything. As for her, last I heard, Cindy was working somewhere in a small office, earning peanuts and living in a trailer. I will say it suits her and hope she rots there and never comes back. Hey, where are you? What are you doing? My mom is in trouble. The voice on the answering machine belonged to my husband. My mother-in-law had collapsed and needed to be rushed to the hospital by ambulance. As I prepared for her hospitalization by opening the wardrobe in her room, I stumbled upon an unbelievable picture of my husband and sister-in-law. The sight of the photo left me in shock, and I fled to my parents' house in a daze. 3 years had passed since I met my husband, but it felt like I had been deceived for a long time. He didn't love me, he just wanted a wife. I couldn't forgive him, and I decided to divorce him. My name is Sarah, I'm 32 years old, and I work at a beauty salon. 4 years ago, I was in a hurry to get married as my friends and colleagues were tying the knot one after another. I wanted to marry before I turned 30. Listening to my married friends talk about their husbands and children made me feel envious and impatient. Even though I smiled and listened, I often cried on my way home, feeling gloomy and left out. With only 2 years left in my 20s, I decided to fully commit to finding a marriage partner. I tried everything, dating apps, marriage activity parties, but finding the right person was tough. The men I liked weren't interested in marriage, and I couldn't seem to find anyone suitable. I didn't think my standards were too high, but nothing worked out. Desperate, I registered with a marriage agency despite the cost. I hoped to meet someone genuinely interested in marriage. That's when I met Ken. He was 5 years older than me, refreshingly handsome, and worked at a prestigious company. From the moment I saw his profile, I felt he was the one. Ken wanted to get married as soon as possible, just like me. When we first met, he was exactly as his profile described, polite and nice. I shared with him that I had little education or work experience but enjoyed housework. Ken smiled and said he was too busy with work to take care of the house. So he wanted to marry someone like me. I was flattered and thrilled. Ken lived alone with his mother, who had a chronic illness, and he explained that she would need to live with us if we got married. I was surprised but appreciated his honesty. Working in a beauty salon, I was used to dealing with older women and felt confident about living with my future mother-in-law. I wanted to know Ken better, and as we went on more dates, my feelings for him deepened. Eventually, I met Ken's mother. She was petite and charming, and we hit it off immediately, sharing a love for sweets. Sarah, you're too good for Ken. You don't need to worry about living with me. I have a chronic illness, but I don't need nursing care. Next time, let's go out for parfait instead of this nice restaurant, she said warmly. Living with her no longer seemed daunting. Ken and I began dating with marriage in mind, and despite his busy schedule, he always made time for me. We traveled together and spent quality time with each other. My impression of him remained positive. He was as refreshing as when we first met. Ken's mother and I became good friends, often going out for sweets together. Despite her illness, she was full of energy. Sometimes, I even forgot the age difference between us. She confided in me about her past, including her 2 divorces and the challenges she faced. After dating for about 6 months, Ken and I got married. I was thrilled that we managed to get married just before we turned 30. I was genuinely happy that all my hard work on marriage activities had paid off. We quickly registered our marriage and started preparing to live together. Then, one day, my husband told me there was something important he needed to discuss with me. I felt a bit uneasy, wondering what it could be. I never told you this before, but I have a sister, Hannah, who is not related to me by blood, he said. At first, I didn't quite understand. Hannah was my husband's stepfather's daughter. My mother-in-law and father-in-law had divorced 5 years ago, and my father-in-law had since passed away. Hannah had no family. My mother-in-law and Hannah didn't get along well, so she never visited. However, my husband was worried about Hannah, who had no family, and kept in touch with her. I'd like to invite her to the wedding, but my mom is against it. Still, Hannah means a lot to me, and I want you to meet her at least once, he explained. I was curious about what kind of person my kind mother-in-law could dislike so much. But seeing how much my husband cared about his family, I agreed to meet her. "Nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm Hannah," she said. She was beautiful and had a flamboyant look. She worked at a bar, and I couldn't understand why my mother-in-law disliked her. Hannah was pleasant and made our meeting enjoyable. When Ken was in middle school and I was in high school, we started living together. "Isn't it like a comic book, suddenly becoming a family?" she said, reminiscing about their past. Ken made fast-paced quips about her stories, and they seemed like a perfect pair, almost like a couple. It was clear she was dear to my husband. "Sarah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it to your wedding." "Be a good wife," Hannah said as we parted. "Don't tell my mother about today. If she gets angry, it'll be a pain in the butt," Ken said on the way home. I didn't know the details of the conflict between my mother-in-law and Hannah, but I decided it was none of my business. I kept the meeting to myself. Life started for the three of us. Ken was busy with work and often came home late. On his days off, we would sometimes go out with my mother-in-law. I was also working, so I did the housework with my mother-in-law's help, and we often went out for sweets or to see a movie together. By all accounts, we were a happy family. However, I did worry about my mother-in-law because sometimes, when she wasn't feeling well, she would sleep all day. I tried to keep in touch with her frequently while I was at work. The only thing that bothered me was that Ken was always on his phone. He was constantly doing something on it, even bringing it into the bath. Initially, I thought he was just addicted to games, but it became so frequent that I started to worry. One time, he called to say he was heading out, and I called him back because I wanted him to get me something at the convenience store. His phone was engaged the whole time, and I couldn't get through to him. When he came back, I confronted him. "Ken, I've been calling you all day," I said. "Sorry, I got a call from the company," he replied. We had just gotten married, and I didn't think it was possible he was cheating on me, but I couldn't help being curious. My mother-in-law didn't seem bothered by his behavior, treating it as normal. One day, I felt guilty but glanced at the screen of his phone. I saw that he was texting someone. It seemed they talked often. One night, Ken came home late, and I couldn't help but wonder who he was talking to in the middle of the night. "Hey, who do you always talk with in the middle of the night?" I asked, trying to sound playful after my mother-in-law had gone to bed. Ken seemed unbothered by my question. "It's my sister. Did you suspect me of cheating on you?" "Don't worry," he laughed. I laughed along with him, feeling a bit foolish for worrying so much. From then on, I didn't mind how much he was on his phone, but he was always busy with work and didn't have much time for me. I felt a bit uncomfortable with him spending nearly all his free time talking to Hannah. 2 years later, life with the three of us was going well. My mother-in-law and I often visited the sweet shop whenever it opened. "Today's pancakes might be the best pancakes of all time," she said. I was thinking the same thing. "I can't wait to try them with you," I replied. To any outsider, we looked like mother and daughter. I never felt self-conscious about living together, and I loved my mother-in-law. Ken was still busy with work and came home late, always glued to his phone. I had gotten used to it and didn't say anything. I wasn't asking him to do the housework, but I did have small complaints. If he had time to contact Hannah, he could at least put his socks in the laundry. However, when Ken had time off, he made sure to spend it with us, never forgetting to celebrate our wedding anniversary or my birthday. Despite the small complaints, we were a happy family. Then one day, my mother-in-law was sick and spent the day in bed. I was worried and checked on her several times. She seemed to sleep quietly during the day, but in the evening, she complained, "Sarah, I'm in pain." She was breathing hard. I called an ambulance in a hurry, and it arrived immediately. I rode with her to the hospital. I was relieved to find out that she wasn't in critical condition. I called Ken to let him know she would be hospitalized for a while. He left work early to come to the hospital, and I went home to pack for a few days' stay with her. When I returned home, I opened the wardrobe in my mother-in-law's room to find her insurance card and personal seal. She had said they were in the top drawer, but I couldn't find them. So I opened the bottom drawer and found a small box. Thinking it might contain the insurance card, I opened it and found a large number of photographs inside. I was so shocked when I saw them that I went to the bathroom and threw up. There were pictures of Ken and Hannah, not as brother and sister, but as lovers. They were holding hands and kissing. Feeling sick, I closed the box. It was painful to think about how close Ken had been with Hannah all this time. My mind went blank, and the next thing I knew, I was running to my parents' house with the box in my arms. At my parents' house, my mother was surprised to see me. When she saw what was in the box, she hugged me. After crying for a while, I calmed down. "These pictures of Ken and another woman, is he cheating?" she asked. My mother was shocked when I told her it was Hannah, and that the photos were in my mother-in-law's wardrobe. I hadn't even told my mother about my sister-in-law. "I can't live with him anymore," I said. "Of course you can't live with him. I can't allow it," my mother replied, angry as well. When I looked at my phone, I saw a lot of missed calls from Ken and a voicemail message that said, "Hey, where are you? What are you doing? Your mother is in trouble." The message was angry. I thought, I'm the one who should be angry, I turned off my phone because talking about it would remind me of the pictures and make me sick. The next day, out of the goodness of my heart, I contacted him. "There's something I need to talk to you about this evening. I'll be there with my mother, so please call Hannah," I told him. "Thank goodness she's alive. What were you going to say when my mother was in trouble?" He started blabbing on and on. "Please do. I'll see you tonight," I said and hung up the phone. I went to my mother-in-law's hospital room. She looked at me happily and called my name. "I'm sorry you're not feeling well, mother-in-law, but I need to hear the truth," I said, opening the box I found in her wardrobe and showing it to her, her eyes filled with tears. "Sarah, I am so sorry," she began. Hannah is the stepdaughter of my ex-husband. 5 years ago, she told me they were lovers, even though they're not related by blood. They're both my children, and I told them I couldn't allow it. Hannah got angry and left the house, and I never saw her again. I should have told you, but those are old photos. Don't worry, I don't even know what Hannah is doing now, and I'm sure she's not in contact with Ken," she said. Her eyes were sincere. She didn't seem to be lying. "Ken is still in contact with Hannah. In fact, he introduced me to her once years ago," I replied. My mother-in-law shed another tear. "But you're already married," she said. "I'm sorry. You did nothing wrong, but I can't be a family with Ken anymore. I'm going to divorce him." "Don't apologize to me. It's my fault for not noticing." "I'm sorry," she said. I couldn't stop crying either. I left the hospital room and went to the house where my mother, Ken, and Hannah were waiting. When I arrived, they were all there. I sat down and immediately showed them the pictures. "You two are lovers, and I'm divorcing you," I declared. Ken didn't seem offended. "Oh yes, that's right. But as a family member and as a lover, they are two different things. We were happy as a family, weren't we? Mom was happy too. What's wrong with that? We don't have to get divorced," he said with his usual fresh smile. Hannah added, "I'm sorry I didn't tell you, but I have no intention of destroying your family. I don't think divorce is necessary." I trembled with anger. "Don't be silly. This is cheating. How can I be family with someone like that?" I yelled. "Well, don't be so loud. If you want a divorce, that's fine. I've done my duty as a family member. Since you're the one who initiated it, it's an amicable divorce," Ken said. "What? What's amicable about this? This is a huge betrayal. I'm going to charge both of you alimony." "Oh, okay, that's fine. I'll pay as much money as you want. In return, don't tell my mother. As to the reason for the divorce, let's just call it a personality conflict." "I've already told your mother everything." She was crying. "I told her we're getting a divorce." "What? Why would you do that?" Ken lost his composure and shouted. Hannah cried, "Why did you tell her?" "My lawyer will contact you about the alimony, so goodbye," I said, leaving the house with my mother. My mother hugged me. "You did a great job," she said. I cried loudly into her chest. Now I knew that Ken never cared about me. He just wanted a wife to reassure his mother. I wanted to marry him too, and maybe we were happy as a family. But I can't forgive myself for not knowing I had been betrayed since the beginning. I'm glad I realized it now and was able to get a divorce. Later, through my lawyer, the divorce was successfully finalized. I requested alimony from Ken and Hannah, but Hannah didn't have any money and was angry at Ken for only paying his share. Their relationship deteriorated, and they decided to separate. Hannah started working lunch and dinner shifts at the bar where she originally worked to pay the alimony. After she was discharged from a hospital, my mother-in-law was angry with Ken and told him that if he saw Hannah even once in the future, she would cut ties with him. My mother-in-law and I still keep in touch and occasionally go out for sweets. I'm relieved that she is out of the hospital and seems to be in good health. I now live with my parents and am busy preparing for the reopening of the beauty salon where I used to work. When things settle down a bit more, I'll start living alone again. I'm no longer envious when I hear about my friends who are married. Until the day comes when I meet someone wonderful again, I'll keep working hard. Hi, I'm Ella, and I'm 30 years old. There's a big change coming up in my life right now, but before I tell you about that, I want to share the events that led to this change. This story centers around two main characters, my husband Danny and my mother-in-law Kim. Danny and I met through a dating app. At the time, I wasn't interested in a relationship at all. I had been on so many dates that I had given up hope of ever finding someone to settle down with. But that changed when I met Danny. From our first text exchange, I knew there was something different about him. He asked interesting, non-intrusive questions and kept the conversation flowing effortlessly. We would text until the early hours of the morning because we always had so much to talk about. When we finally met in person, I was worried the spark we had over text would vanish and the date would be awkward. But as soon as we started talking, it felt just like it did over text. Our first date was followed by many more, where we spent hours together without realizing how much time had passed. After dating for around 2 years, we decided to throw caution to the wind and get married. It might seem like a short time to some, but when you know, you know. We both felt it in our souls that we were meant for each other. Our relationship had been the most amazing thing that had ever happened to me. I wasn't going to let that go. We had a small, intimate wedding with only those closest to us. Everything was perfect until the reception. Danny's mother, Kim, approached us. Although I was cautious, she seemed surprisingly nice, which was odd given her history of treating me poorly. We soon found out why she was being so nice. She tried to spill her wine on my dress to ruin it. Thankfully, Danny had quick reflexes and pulled me away before any wine touched my dress. We didn't confront her but quickly moved away and socialized with the rest of our guests. However, the night was somewhat ruined because we were paranoid that Kim would try to harm me again. You might be wondering why Kim tried to do that. Let me tell you about our complicated relationship. From the moment I met her, she seemed to hate me and made it abundantly clear. When Danny first introduced me to her, she loudly gasped and said my ugliness took her by surprise. While I knew I didn't fit conventional beauty standards, being called ugly outright was hurtful. During the rest of that meeting, she continued to insult me, and I didn't say a word back because who would confront their partner's parents? But Danny had my back. In the middle of that meal, he got up, paid for our portion, and we left. Kim didn't take that well and bombarded him with calls and messages. Danny made it clear to her that if she didn't respect me, he wouldn't stay in contact with her. I felt terrible about what I was doing to Danny's relationship with his mom. They had been very close, and she had single-handedly raised him. I had a huge breakdown about it, and Danny was there for me. Did I actually do something wrong to your mother? Did I say something I shouldn't have? Did I dress wrong? I asked him. No, darling, not at all. I don't even know why she's behaving this way, he replied. I wouldn't mind her treating me this way, but it's affecting your relationship with her, and I don't like that, I said. Listen to me, Ella. Unless you actually did something wrong, I don't see any reason why I should continue to be nice to my mother, he reassured me. But she's your only family. You can't let me get in between that. You'll be my new family then. My mother needs to apologize for what she did, and only then will I be nice to her. You don't have to worry about a thing. Thank you so much for being on my side in all this, Danny. Of course, honey. I love you, and you've been nothing but super nice about this whole thing. But you need to stop thinking that you're the one causing all this. This is just bringing out my mother's true colors, and I'm not liking what I'm seeing. It was really comforting to have Danny on my side. He reassured me every time he and Kim fought about their lack of communication. Kim's hatred for me only grew over the next few years. Every time we met, which was only on holidays, she tried to hurt me. Danny always stood between us. But that never stopped her from trying to get to me. Whenever Danny and I tried to talk to her, she lashed out, accusing us of treating her like she was crazy. We always spoke to her calmly and gently, but she got aggressive very quickly. She never failed to tell us what she thought of me, believing I was brainwashing Danny into pulling away from her. She even thought I was blackmailing him to leave her so I could have him all to myself. Of course, Danny never stayed quiet about it. He constantly fought for me, telling her on many occasions to leave us alone. He even blocked her on every platform so she couldn't contact us. But Kim was relentless. She showed up at our house and demanded that Danny speak to her. We had a huge argument at our doorstep, which escalated into a screaming match between Danny and Kim, loud enough that our neighbors started tuning in. I calmly and politely asked Kim to leave and suggested we talk about it over the phone once we'd all calmed down. Instead of listening, she shoved me aside forcefully and told me to shut up. Danny saw red and called the police, asking them to escort her off our property because she refused to leave. Kim cried and screamed, not expecting Danny to call the cops on her. She tried to put her hands on me again, blaming me for changing Danny, but Danny stood between us, preventing her from harming me. The cops arrived just in time to see her trying to strangle me and quickly held her back and escorted her away. After that, Danny and I decided to file a restraining order against her. It was a tough decision, but we had no other choice. I tried my best to be civil with Kim, but she never wanted to be nice. We had the restraining order served to her, and she immediately called us. Danny put his phone on speaker mode so I could hear and contribute to the conversation if needed. "What is the meaning of this?" Kim demanded. "Meaning of what?" Danny replied. "This restraining order." "Kim, you know you've been unnecessarily aggressive towards Ella these past few months. You've shown up at our doorstep and tried to assault her. So you're the reason my son sent me this restraining order. You poisoned his mind with all these awful things." "She did no such thing. You've been horrible to deal with," Danny interjected. "What kind of son is comfortable sending his own mother an order restricting her access to him?" Kim continued. "What kind of mother tries to strangle her son's wife?" Danny shot back. "Stay out of our lives, or I will make things worse for you. I'm sorry it has come to this, but if you change your behavior, we will resign the order." Wow, you create the problem and then try to get all the recognition for solving it. I don't want any of your apologies. I will ruin you, just you wait and watch. "That's enough now. Goodbye," Danny said firmly. It was disappointing to hear Kim still be so rude. What would it take for her to learn to be nice? Every day, I couldn't help but wonder if I had done something to upset her. Danny and I had multiple conversations about it, going over every possibility, but she deemed me ugly within the first 5 seconds of meeting and proceeded to hate me ever since. Maybe she was upset that Danny had another woman in his life, which I could understand, given it had been just the two of them for a long time. But to actively try to hurt me and our relationship was neither okay nor normal. I suggested therapy to her on several occasions over the years, but she always said she was fine and that the only thing that would fix her was me getting out of her and Danny's life. Of course, there was no way I was leaving Danny's life, and even if I wanted to, he would never have let me leave for that reason. We tried our best to be civil with Kim, but it didn't work. She took to telling the rest of Danny's family about my supposed evil doings, and Danny ended up getting a lot of concerned calls. Even though Danny handled the situation, it surprised me how easily Kim managed to convince everyone of her beliefs. Either she was very influential in the family or she was just really good at lying. My bets were on the latter. After she received the restraining order, she stopped coming by our place, although I did catch her loitering just outside our house. She would just stand there and watch our house. Seeing someone just standing there and staring can be quite creepy. Danny and I called the police several times, but somehow she always managed to disappear before they arrived. Eventually, she stopped showing up, and we thought we were finally free. Then our mail began disappearing. Many things I ordered in letters from my family never arrived. Whenever I checked the mailbox, the mail was gone. It was really frustrating because I was missing out on beautiful letters from my family and none of my orders were being refunded, despite delivery confirmations. Danny and I suspected Kim was behind it. We knew she was bitter and angry with us. We didn't agree with her methods and didn't want to engage with her. If she thought this would get us to talk to her, she was wrong. Instead, we bought a noticeable camera and attached it to the mailbox with a note stating that the area was under surveillance. Sure enough, we saw Kim standing in her usual spot and staring at the house when we were at work. Then she approached the mailbox, read the note, and turned away. We didn't say anything because at least she seemed to take the note seriously. One day, I was at work when I got a call from Kim. She was blocked on my phone, but she called my company and had them get me on the line. I didn't even want to know how she found out where I worked because it would have only made me more paranoid. "Hi, Ella. Kim, why are you calling me? Oh, I just wanted to let you know about something I did. Okay. These past few months, all I could think about was how much I hated you for ruining my relationship with my son. First of all, that's very unhealthy. Secondly, I didn't do any of that. You did that to yourself by hating me so much and trying to ruin your son's relationship because of that hatred. I'm not done, Ella. I really don't have time for this. Oh, you will definitely have time for this when I tell you what I did. Like I said, I was so consumed by my thoughts that one day it hit me. I didn't have to get near you to hurt you. Kim, what did you do? Nothing too big for me, really. I just happened to walk by your place when I saw your car parked by the sidewalk. I had my keys in my hand, and next thing I knew, I was scratching up your car real good like a mad person with them. Here, let me send you a couple of pictures. I was confused because from where I was sitting by the window, I could clearly see my car parked there. I knew that Danny wasn't home either, and we both had distinctly different cars. So if neither of our cars was there, whose car was it and why was it parked by our place? My questions were answered when I received the pictures Kim had emailed me. Considering she was blocked everywhere else, the car was indeed scratched up really well, but it wasn't mine. I took a closer look at the number plate and instantly recognized whose car it was. It belonged to Senator John. We had a senator who lived in our neighborhood, known for being able to get away with small things like bad parking. Although he was genuinely a nice guy, everyone liked him and no one complained. In fact, Danny and he were quite amicable. If there was one thing I knew about John, it was that he took his cars very seriously. That man never had a speck of dirt on his cars, and he had fired multiple people who washed them because they didn't clean them well enough. It was no surprise that he was going to lose his mind when he saw his car all scratched up. I was upset that Kim had gone so far, but I knew this was going to be her true learning moment. I took a couple of pictures of my car sitting in the parking lot and sent them to her. What? Cat got your tongue. I really don't know what to say. Kim, of course you don't. This is definitely beyond anything you could have imagined. I told you I would ruin you, and this is just the beginning. Oh, and listen, I hear the police coming down the street. I don't know how to tell you this, but that's not my car. What? Don't lie to me. If this is your way of trying to make me feel bad, it's not going to work. No, seriously, my car is parked at work. I took a couple of pictures and sent them to you. Why don't we take a look? But, whose car did I scratch? That would be the senator's car. Senator John, who, by the way, is very particular about his cars. What? Oh, Kim, if you wanted to cause me harm, the least you could have done was check whose car it was. What do I do? Face the consequences of your actions. Take care, Kim, goodbye. A part of me was excited to see what would happen to Kim. It brought me a certain level of satisfaction to hear her shiver as I told her whose car she had damaged. I immediately called Danny to tell him what had happened. While he was shocked and angry that she had even attempted to do something to me, he couldn't help but laugh at how things had turned out for her. By the time I was done with work, I had received a call from the police station requesting Danny and me to come down. At the station, we gave our statements, emphasizing that Kim had a vendetta against me and that we had a restraining order against her. It didn't help Kim's case that she was at the scene of the crime, even though she denied doing it. The police asked if we had any security cameras around our home, and I told them about the one attached to our mailbox. We reviewed the footage and surprise, it clearly showed Kim scratching the car like a mad person. Senator John was understandably furious. He approached Danny to have a word. Danny, I think you're a great guy, but this is inexcusable. I fully agree with you, John. I don't think what my mom did deserves any forgiveness. Really? I thought you tried to defend her. She tried to do that to my wife's car. I would have done the same thing you're doing if she had succeeded. Why would she even want to do that to Ella? She's a lovely woman. That's what I've tried to tell my mom, but she refuses to believe that my wife is anything less than evil. That's a shame. Even so, I'm really sorry for what my mother did. If you need me to cover any of the costs of the car, let me know. Nonsense. I approached you to tell you that I will be pursuing the highest punishment possible. She will pay for the damages. I just didn't want us to have any hard feelings. No hard feelings on my side, John. Do whatever you think is fair. Senator John was not lying when he said he would pursue maximum punishment. Over the next few weeks, Kim was taken to court, Her behavior was reviewed, and many testimonies were given regarding her actions. In our state, damage to property worth over $500 results in a felony charge, along with a fine of above $1,000 and potential jail time. Finally, a verdict was given. Kim was charged with damage to personal property, fined $5,000, and sentenced to 2 years of jail time. Kim broke down and sobbed as the verdict was given. I once again felt a little bad, but Danny seemed relieved. For the next 2 years, we wouldn't have to deal with her harassment. Kim was escorted out of the courtroom and taken away. Senator John approached us again to apologize, but we assured him that he had only done what was right. Even though we were still worried about the future, once Kim finished her sentence, we felt a sense of peace. A few weeks after she began serving her time, she started sending us letters, detailing how she would make our lives hell when she got out. Neither Danny nor I wanted to continue dealing with her, so we made the tough decision to move out of our town. Thankfully, we both always wanted to leave but were too focused on our careers to make a change like that. As I'm writing this, Danny and I are packing our things to move to Europe, where we both have found better jobs. We're set to move in a month, and I cannot wait to start fresh. It's going to be hard to adjust, but it will all be worth it in the end. We haven't told anyone from either of our families that we're moving yet, and when we do, we won't give them any details. We can't have Kim finding out where we are and harassing us again. It was a tough call to leave everything we knew behind because of one person, but it's going to be the best decision we've made. I can already feel it. When I go to my eldest son Liam's house for Christmas, I am treated like a maid. Liam, my husband's child from a previous marriage, and I never got along well. Despite my efforts to be recognized as a mother, Liam never accepted me. He seemed happy to have someone to do all the housework, allowing him and his wife, Ava, to relax. Hearing them laugh about it left me feeling hopeless, but soon my sadness turned into anger. Why should I do housework for these people? I decided to stop and get my revenge. I'm Isabella, 81 years old, living alone. I got married at 37, having been all about work with no love life until my father introduced me to someone. My father, a wealthy man with many real estate properties, introduced me to a kind man from the real estate company he used. Although he had been divorced, I couldn't refuse because he was so kind. Concerned about my age and my parents' worries, I seized the opportunity. My husband was very friendly, and despite being surprised by his divorce, I admired how he was raising 2 young sons as a single father. We got along well and started dating, but we couldn't go on many dates because of his kids. Instead, I often cooked and ate with them at his house. His second son, Noah, quickly took a liking to me. He was a charming boy, always smiling and talking. However, Liam remained distant and barely responded when I talked to him. I persisted, hoping to build a relationship, and eventually married their father when I was 38. I tried to bond with the sons like a real mother, attending their sports events and cheering for them. Despite having no children of my own, I did my best as a parent. However, Liam's coldness persisted, and our relationship only worsened over time. Liam's rebellious behavior, failing a prestigious high school entrance exam, and subsequent delinquency created a rift between us. He would stay out late and come home in the middle of the night. "What are you doing?" "I'm worried." "At least call me," I would say. His response, "Shut up, don't talk to me like you're my mom." "You're not my parent," hurt deeply. Despite my best efforts, my feelings never reached him. My husband and Noah supported me, but Liam eventually stopped talking to me altogether. He left home for college and never returned, except for occasional contact through my husband or Noah. Both sons eventually moved on to college, jobs, and marriage, starting their own lives. I looked forward to enjoying life with just my husband, but fate was cruel. My husband died in a car accident, hit by a drunk driver while returning from an outing with friends. The sudden loss was overwhelming. He was still so healthy. I wasn't ready to say goodbye. Even after the funeral, I couldn't stop crying. Noah kindly comforted me, saying, "Mom, if anything happens, rely on us. We're family." Liam also seemed concerned, helping with funeral arrangements. Despite being widowed, I felt comforted knowing I wasn't alone. Now living alone, the house felt too large without my husband. I considered getting a dog when Liam came to visit. "What's the matter?" "It's rare to see you," I said, surprised. We hadn't been in contact for decades, and the last time I saw him was at his wedding and then my husband's funeral. This was our first time talking alone, and I felt strangely nervous. I have a favor to ask, Liam said. A favor? I need to borrow some money. What? Why? I was in a hit-and-run accident and car repairs are expensive. This month has been tight. That's terrible. How much do you need? $20,000. All right, I'll transfer it. Can you give me your account number? Really? Are you sure? Liam was very surprised. $20,000 isn't a small amount, but helping a son in trouble is a parent's duty. I was happy that Liam finally relied on me. It's a parent's nature to want to help. We're family. You can always ask. Thank you, Mom. It was the first time Liam called me Mom. I was overjoyed, feeling finally recognized as family. I thought my long struggles had paid off, but I was mistaken. In December, Liam called, Mom, would you like to come over for Christmas? Really? Can I? Of course. Dad's gone and you're alone, right? You should spend it at our place. I was moved. The once rebellious Liam was now so considerate. I was deeply touched that Liam, who had been troublesome since high school, had grown so much. I eagerly accepted the invitation and prepared for my visit. I decided to stay from the 22nd to the 26th. I asked several times if it was too long, but he cheerfully assured me it was fine, so I took Liam at his word. Liam and Ava lived in an apartment. My first visit to Liam's place revealed a two-room home that felt cluttered despite its spaciousness. So this is where you live. Is this the first time you've been here, Mom? It's been a while since you've seen Ava, right? Isabella, it's been since the funeral. Ava wore exaggerated false eyelashes and heavy makeup, looking much younger than her late 50s, more so than at the funeral. Sorry to ask, but could you sleep in the living room? There's a sofa. Oh, okay. I was surprised by this unexpected turn of events. The house was small and lacked guest blankets. Staying here for days, I couldn't hide my confusion. However, Liam and Ava seemed completely unbothered. Then Liam said to me, We really wanted to eat your cooking, Isabella. Can you make something? I've heard Isabella's cooking is delicious and I wanted to try it too. Of course. Can I use whatever's in the fridge? Oh, right ahead. I was flustered to be asked to cook but also thrilled. I never thought Liam would find my cooking delicious. Noah often praised it, but Liam had never said anything like that. Feeling happy that he wanted to eat my food again, I started cooking in the kitchen. There wasn't much in the fridge, so I made a simple pasta dish. Delicious, Isabella. This is amazing. Please cook again tomorrow. Yeah, this tastes. It's nostalgic. Liam and Ava ate happily. My mood was at its peak seeing their enjoyment. Of course, I'll cook tomorrow too. Is there anything in particular you want to eat? Chicken pot pie for tomorrow sounds good. Chicken pot pie for dinner, right? How about pizza for lunch? Yeah, sounds great. No matter their age, to a parent, they are always children. I thought to do anything for Liam and Ava. But that night, I couldn't sleep due to the cold, feeling apprehensive about the days ahead. Waking up earlier than anyone, I started preparing breakfast and Liam and Ava soon followed, lured by the smell. Waking up to a ready breakfast is the best. Thank you. They started their meal with smiles. I'll go shopping today. It was cold last night. Can I buy a blanket? Sure, but we don't have cash on hand to give you. That's okay, just do whatever. Liam's indifferent response bothered me, but I decided to go shopping after cleaning up breakfast. At a nearby shopping center, I bought a blanket and groceries. When I returned to the apartment, it was almost noon. Rushing home to prepare lunch, I heard Liam and Ava laughing. Man, I didn't expect it to go this smoothly. Right? Let's get her to do other chores too. If we call her Mom, she'll happily do it. Awesome. I was stunned to hear Liam's words. Such an idiot, happy to be treated as a mother. She's so eager, cooking and shopping since morning. Isn't that too much? If she's this soft for her son, I should have pretended to be a better son earlier. Right. Why didn't we go to Isabella for money sooner? She's not even working, just living off of Dad's inheritance. But there should be more inheritance left to squeeze out. Fantastic. I was astonished by Liam and Ava's words. Thinking they saw me as family was a complete misunderstanding. Liam was lying to get my husband's inheritance that I had received, taking advantage of my generosity. They invited me for Christmas to make me do housework. I was shocked. I thought we had finally become a family. I was the only one excited. Stunned, I was approached by Liam, who was heading to the bathroom. Surprised to see me, his face stiffened for a moment, but he quickly smiled. "Mom, you're back. Must have been cold outside. I'm starving." "Oh, you're back. Looking forward to lunch?" They spoke to me as if they hadn't been overheard, buttering me up. Still confused, I followed Liam's lead to the kitchen and began preparing the meal. They didn't help, just started eating as soon as I served the food. "Oh, this is delicious. Thank you, Mom. You've always been good at housework. Could you do the laundry and cleaning too?" As you can see, Ava is not good at it. Yeah, it's hard keeping up with housework. When I worked part-time every day, the living room was cluttered with discarded clothes and empty plastic bottles. Far from sanitary. But now that you're off, you can do it, right? "No, I really can't tidy up." "Then let's do it together. Housework is easy once you get used to it." I have other things I want to do today." "Mom, please, we're family, right? I just want to relax for Christmas." Liam spoke as if he were pleading, but I knew it was all an act. Why should I be the one to serve Liam and Ava? I couldn't accept it, yet if I refused now, it might create an unbridgeable gap between us. Maybe it's better if they're a bit selfish. Family, I decided to think that way. "All right, but I'd like you to help me a little." "Yes, thank you, Mom." In the end, they didn't help me at all with the housework. Instead, their behavior became increasingly arrogant. On Christmas Eve, Liam and Ava started drinking from noon, laughing stupidly while watching TV. "Mom, is dinner ready yet?" "You're slow." "Hey, did you wash this shirt yesterday?" "I wanted to wear it today." "Mom, bring me a beer. I want some appetizers." They just lounge on the sofa, treating me like a servant. Why am I doing housework for these people? This isn't how families should treat each other. I had reached my limit and spoke to them. "Why don't you stop drinking from noon and do some cleaning? I'm not the only one who should be doing housework." Drunk, Liam and Ava glared at me fiercely. "What? Shut up, you old hag. Don't talk back." Right, tell her more." "You should be grateful we're even acknowledging you as family, you blood-unrelated old woman. Show your gratitude through housework. It's better than being alone at home, right? Be thankful to us." Liam and Ava were completely mocking me. At that moment, my feelings for Liam disappeared. Why had I been so desperate to become family with such people? It's better to be alone than to be family with them. I don't want to live being looked down upon and used by these people. Unaware of my feelings, they continued to order me around. "Can we order steak for Christmas? For Christmas, it's got to be appetizers, right? Order some appetizers and a roast turkey too, please." Without even looking at me, they spoke. I had an idea for a little revenge. Understood. I ordered appetizers and a roast turkey for delivery. Delivery culture has become widespread. Even high-end restaurants do it now. It's convenient to eat high-end appetizers and roast turkey at home. I ordered the most expensive ones, totaling $3,000, of course, cash on delivery. Then, leaving a note saying, "I'm going back to my house," I returned to my own home. 5 hours later, back at my house, Liam called me as I was having a quiet dinner. "Hello." "Hey, why did you just leave?" Seems he finally realized my revenge. I suppressed a smile and coughed to stay calm. "Leave? I'm just going back to my own house. Why do I need permission?" "Don't talk back. More importantly, why are the appetizers and roast turkey $3,000? How can we afford that?" "It's from a nice place. I splurged for Christmas." Trying not to laugh, I spoke, and Liam and Ava's voices got louder. They must be red-faced and angry now. "We didn't ask you to order something that expensive." "Then you should have ordered it yourselves." "I just ordered what I thought was good since you asked me to." "Why would you order something so expensive, you idiot? What's wrong with your sense of money being so poor? Just come back and pay now." "No way. It's dangerous for an old person to walk alone at night. I avoid going out after dark." "What? Are you kidding? We're cutting ties with you." "Okay. Yeah, isn't it sad to be alone on Christmas? We're kindly offering to spend it with you, and you waste our consideration." How rude. Liam and Ava threatened to cut ties with me, using the bond of family. In the past, their threats would have shaken me, but now it didn't matter. I'd rather be alone than spend time with people who use family affection to treat me like a servant. It's fine with me. Let's cut ties then. "Are you sure?" A poor person with only dad's inheritance? Don't come to us for money when you're in trouble. Even if you ask, we won't lend you any. Just so you know, we're not going to take care of you either. Noah doesn't live nearby, right? So if you need care, there's no one to look after you. Poor thing with no money and no one to care for you. Liam and Ava seemed to think they were in a position of advantage. They always misunderstood that I was poor in my old age, unable to work, and burdened with medical and care expenses. They thought threatening not to support me would make me comply. But it was irrelevant to me because I had enough money to give my son $20,000 just like that. Feeling sorry for them, I decided to tell Liam the truth before cutting ties. You keep saying I'm poor, but I'm not struggling with money. Huh? But you don't work, and you only have dad's inheritance, right? No, I have an income of about $5,000 a month besides the inheritance. $5,000 a month? How come? My father was a wealthy man and an only child. I inherited his real estate, sold some, but the remaining properties give me a steady rental income, so I'm set for my retirement. Rental income? We didn't know that. Well, of course, we hardly ever spoke, did we? True, Noel lives far away and can't take care of me in my old age, but with money, I can hire facilities or home health aides. I never intended to burden my sons with my care. I've saved enough to not be a burden in my old age. By the way, since we're cutting ties, I'll leave the inheritance only to Noah. I should write it in a will. Maybe it's time to start end-of-life planning. Wait, hold on. It's unfair for only Noah to inherit. I'm your son too. Huh? Aren't you a stranger now that we've cut ties? Who are you? Don't mess around. How can you call your son a stranger? Heartless. Huh. I thought the one who treated their mother like a servant and tried to get her inheritance was heartless. How do you know that? You thought I hadn't heard? Silly. Anyway, we're strangers now. Goodbye. Wait, I can't pay the $3,000. Help me. Liam kept shouting something, but I ignored it and hung up. Then I blocked his number. My revenge worked perfectly. Life isn't so sweet that you can dump chores on others and enjoy all the benefits. They should regret how they treated me a little. After that, I blocked Liam's number and got into a taxi. I knew Liam and Ava would soon come here. I couldn't have a peaceful Christmas if they did, so I decided to go to a distant cottage and spend Christmas alone. 5 days later, when I returned home, Liam and Ava were standing there. Oh, finally back. Hey, what are you doing in front of someone's house? Are you some kind of stalker? Pretending to be a stranger, I entered my house. Liam knelt down in desperation. We were wrong. Please, let's be a family again. Right, Liam was really worried these 5 days without contact with you, Isabella. He came here every day. Ava grabbed my hand, pleading. They seemed desperate. The moment they knew I had money, their attitude changed so drastically. It was disgusting. What exactly does being family mean to you? Family means helping each other out in times of trouble. Right? Sure, but I'm not in trouble. What if you get into trouble someday? It's comforting to have us around, Isabella. Then I'll contact you if I'm in trouble. As I tried to enter my house, they desperately tried to stop me. Wait, you might not be in trouble, but we are. In what kind of trouble? We're out of money. Really? That's tough. Work hard. Is that all? Shouldn't there be more of a reaction? Liam and Ava looked at me in surprise. They'd probably expected me to lend them money. I'm tired of hearing that kind of talk. It's cold, and I just wanted to go inside. That's all I was thinking about. We have debts. The income from our jobs is so little. I'm supporting the household with my part-time job too, but the debt isn't decreasing. Please help us. Aren't you our mother? Their words had no effect on me. If you have debts, why are you taking time off for Christmas? Huh? Isn't it normal to take a break on Christmas? Aren't wages usually higher during events like Christmas? And you think you can enjoy a leisurely Christmas break with debts? You probably thought you'd get money by saying family and son again, right? That's not it. Then earn it desperately. You're in your 50s, still of an age to earn. If you're desperate enough, you can repay your debts. It's impossible. We can't just. Stop being so dependent. It's embarrassing at over 50. As a family, I'm telling you, you're too reliant on others, only thinking about taking the easy way out. Liam and Ava probably didn't expect to be lectured by me. They were wide-eyed in surprise. You can't go on like this. As a family, I care about you, so I'll be strict. I won't provide any financial support from now on. What? Earn your own money. Ignoring the speechless Liam and Ava, I entered my house. A parent isn't just there to spoil their children. As a parent, I believe it's my role to guide them on the right path, even if it means being tough. I've resolved not to indulge Liam just because he's family. Afterward, I received no contact from Liam. I heard from Noah that Liam had gotten into gambling and debt. After being rejected by me, he went to Noah for money but was firmly turned down. I can't afford to give money to someone who just wants to gamble. I have children to take care of. Noah's words were completely reasonable. Eventually, Liam and Ava couldn't stop gambling, and their debts increased. Once, I passed by their house and saw a scary-looking person demanding money. In the end, my words didn't reach them. It's regrettable, but Liam's future is no longer my concern. I've moved from that house and haven't given Liam my new contact information, so there's no future involvement. Somewhere in my heart, I wonder if cutting ties with Liam was heartless, but it wasn't the wrong decision. If I had continued to indulge them under the guise of family, I would have been robbed of all my savings. I refuse to live such a life.